All right, good morning. Notice the time and place of these committee meetings was publicized by notifying the area news media, by notifying the Omaha World Herald and the Nebraska Press Association, OPPD outlets, newsletter, OPPD.com, and social media, by displaying such notice on the arcade level of Energy Plaza, and by emailing such notice to each of the district's directors on August 15th, 2025. A copy of the proposed agenda for this meeting has been maintained on a current basis and is readily available for public inspection in the office of the district's corporate secretary. Additionally, a copy of the Open Meetings Act is available for inspection on OPPD.com and in this meeting room. Thank you all for joining us. As a reminder to those joining us on WebEx, please mute your microphones to reduce background noise. To members of the public, thank you for attending. You're in listen-only mode. If you have any technology questions, please use the chat feature in WebEx to communicate with the event host. Our agenda for today's meeting is as follows. We'll conduct a closed session this morning to discuss three topics: corporate officer performance reviews and compensation adjustments, CEO performance review and compensation adjustment, and economic development impact. We'll conclude this morning's closed session no later than 9:50 a.m. in order to open the WebEx meeting to allow the public and OPPD staff to join. We'll begin public session at approximately 10 a.m. and receive reports from each committee. Director Spurgeon, do we have a motion to go into closed session?
Yes, we do. I move that the board go into closed session at this time, 8:01 a.m., to discuss three topics. 1, corporate officer performance reviews and compensation adjustments. 2, CEO performance review and compensation adjustment. And 3, economic development impact. With respect to the corporate officer performance reviews and compensation adjustments, a closed session is necessary because the discussion will involve competitive and confidential compensation and retention information, as well as performance evaluation information. A closed session discussion is necessary to prevent needless injury to the reputations of the corporate officers, and none has requested a public meeting. With respect to CEO performance review and compensation adjustment for Javier Fernandez, a closed session is necessary because the discussion will involve competitive and confidential compensation and retention information, as well as performance evaluation information. A closed session is necessary to prevent needless injury to the reputation of Mr. Fernandez, and he has not requested a public meeting. With respect to economic development impact, a closed session is necessary because the discussion will involve competitively sensitive customer information.
All right, this motion requires a second. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, Ms. Lane?
Yes. Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Yes.
Howard?
Yes.
Yes. Surgeon?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes. All right, the motion to go into closed session is passed. This closed session will be limited to three topics: corporate officer performance reviews and compensation adjustments, CEO performance review and compensation adjustment, and economic development impact. No votes or other board action will be taken. All right, thank you, everyone. To get back to the day, we need a motion and a second required to reconvene an open session. All right, Ms. Lane?
Jody, could you? Okay. Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Ford?
Yes.
Howard?
Yes.
Yes. Surgeon?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes. All right, the motion to come out of closed session at 10:02 a.m. is carried. This closed session was limited to discussion regarding three topics: corporate officer performance reviews, compensation adjustments, CEO performance review, compensation adjustment, and economic development impact. No votes or other board actions were taken. And just a point of note, we did not get to economic development impact, so there will be a closed session on that after the end of the day. Notice of the time and place of these committee meetings was publicized by notifying the area news media, by notifying the Omaha World Herald and the Nebraska Press Association, OPPD outlets newsletter, OPPD.com, and social media, by displaying such notice on the arcade level of Energy Plaza, and by emailing such notice to each of the district's directors on August 15th, 2025. Thank you all for joining us. As a reminder to those joining us on WebEx, please mute your microphones to reduce background noise. To members of the public, thank you for attending. You're in listen-only mode. If you have any technology questions, please use the chat feature in WebEx to communicate with the event host. We'll take public comments at the end of today's meetings, as well at the board meeting on August 21st, 2025, which will be conducted in person at the Omaha Douglas Civic Center and begin at 5 p.m. The public may attend in person or remotely via WebEx by going to OPPD.com. Joining me today in person are my fellow board members, Amanda Bogner, Mike Kavanaugh, Sarah Howard, John Hudson, Craig Moody, Mary Spurgeon, and Eric Williams. We also have members of our executive leadership team, Steve Bruckner, our general counsel with the Fraser Stryker Law Firm, and OPPD staff. Additionally, we currently have
20.
20 attendees in this meeting consisting of OPPD employees and members of the public. Today, we'll hear from the following committee reports. Director Spurgeon will talk about governance. Director Howard will talk about customer and public engagement. Director Moody will have finance, and Director Williams will report on system management and nuclear oversight. Josh Clark will now give the safety briefing.
It's a long walk. Good morning, everyone. Welcome back. It's good to see everyone. We'll go through a quick safety briefing. If anybody's not feeling ill or not feeling well, hopefully you're not here today. You're at home getting rest and getting hydration. Please be aware of any AEDs, fire suppression materials, first aid, and exits. We do have 2 exits, one at the front. We also have this door that is an exit. However, when you go out this door, you have to take an immediate right and follow the hallway back down to this main lobby area. In the event of an evacuation of any type, I would ask that everyone congregate in that parking lot just to the north of us here. That way we can make sure everybody's safe and secure and have some accountability. Also, be watching for environmental hazards. I don't think we have any storms in the forecast. However, it is hot, so make sure you're staying hydrated and please be aware of the heat if you're out and about. If anybody needs any assistance, just let us know. Here at OPPD, we can get you help as quickly as possible. We also have security forces outside of the room as well at the main desktop desk there that can get you help quickly. In the event of any type of active threat, we would ask that everybody keep situationally aware and run, hide, or fight. Also, in these meetings, we want everyone aware of your psychological safety. These meetings are meant to be respectful. We want to hear healthy conflict, hear from multiple perspectives, as well as understanding this is a trusting environment, one where we want to promote a culture of curiosity. And then finally, we all work with very important digital environments, so we always are cautious of our cybersecurity. Watch out for those spam emails. Those can be malicious, so always be quick to hit our spam button if you are in OPPD, and if you're not, just be aware of those and make sure that you're not clicking on anything that you're not sure about where it's coming from. So with that, I'll turn it back over and have a great meeting.
All right. Thank you, Josh. Director Spurgeon, Director Spurgeon, can you now give your report on the governance committee?
Yes, thank you, Chair Ford. The governance had their pre-committee meeting on August 12th. Following a safety briefing, we had a discussion within our group about officers' compensation adjustment and CEO performance compensate evaluation and compensation adjustment. We went on with prior month committee action items. Had a little discussion about the upcoming board workshop, which is a week from Thursday, with our advisors who were present to brief us on that. Ethics reporting, I was able to report that no ethical violations had been reported to me in the intervening couple of months here. We looked at the governance committee planning calendar briefly, and the board work plan briefly, had a little summary of the meeting. And amazingly enough, we closed the meeting just a few minutes after 9 o'clock, which was pretty astonishing, actually. We are still in conversations about officers' compensation adjustment. So that's all I can say about that. Just send it back to you.
All right. Thank you. So now we'll move on to Director Howard for customer and public engagement.
That's great. The Public Engagement Committee met on August 11th, and we covered a variety of topics. And the 2 that we're bringing up to the all committees today are the customer and public engagement tools and the customer program update. And I will pass it over to Tim for the customer and public engagement section.
Thank you, Director Howard. So I will bring forth Brooke Aiken. So the purpose of this, we want to make the board and in the public aware of all of the variety of methods for OPPD customers to engage with us. And I think what you'll see is there are a variety of them. Each of them take on kind of different contexts of how customers can utilize those. So we want to profile that. So I'll turn it over to Brooke and Kate Thomas.
All right, thank you, Tim. Good morning, everyone. We're going to walk through a handful of slides here and certainly welcome any questions or discussion. I'm going to kick things off and turn it over to Kate as well. But just to set the foundation here. So as a customer-owned utility, we know that our success depends on listening to our customers and stakeholders, informing them and earning their trust. We've got a lot of work underway and certainly welcome their feedback and questions. And so we're going to provide a comprehensive overview today of the integrated approach we take, the role of the tools we use, the value they bring, and the stakeholder considerations involved in the approach. So the next slide hits on a high level what we do in terms of a multi-channel engagement system, really to be comprehensive, data-driven, and adaptable to different audiences. So we recognize that consistent engagement brings us credibility and also can address misinformation. And we know this to be important, right, for our customers, meeting them where they're at, whether it's digitally, in person, or somewhere in between. We proactively focus on how we show up across all channels to really provide clarity, inform constituents, and reinform our value proposition. So you'll see a framework highlighted here that Kate will walk through, and just recognizing we cover more than a few dozen channels actually, informing, engaging, and measuring. So the tools we use really try to maximize reach online and offline. So Kate will walk us through the next.
The next slide. So in a world where there's kind of fragmented channels and fragmented energy, we know that we need to use a full arsenal of tools to not only reach out, but have dialogue with our customer owners. And so this is really just a sampling to show you how we think about that. So everything from really formal educational tools like newsletters that you can see, to all different sorts of our customers and stakeholders, to traditional social media, news releases, research in which we have even panels with our OPPD customers who give us real-time information about a point of view, a product, a service, the customer satisfaction studies that we present during our JD Power, our SD5 monitoring report, really all of the different outreach activities that we have in which we're meeting our customers and our community where they're at. That goes from outreach that you might think of in a parade or an event to even just what we do every single day with our account executives. We're constantly aggregating those insights and trying to understand what they mean for our individual customers and for our customers at large. We have strong digital presence online, not only a traditional website, but additional education sources. So OPPD, the Wire, which is what we like to call our first and best source of information, takes a journalistic approach to educating about not only what's available from a products and services perspective, but why we're making decisions. And we take a lot of pride that we use a pretty neutral and journalistic approach to that. So we're well trusted as that first and best source. And then OPPD Community Connect, which we know is also a premier tool and is used as an engagement platform that kicked off during our, the pandemic. And really a way that we see it is similar to when our customer owners or stakeholders come to us at a board meeting or offer a comment. It's a digital way in which they can give us some thoughtful responses and learn more about some of those bigger outreach or project efforts that we have going on. And then you'll see, all of these proactive open houses, local leader meetings, our board meetings which we're having right now. We see this as a full ecosystem of ways to both educate and then hear back from our customers, constituents, stakeholders, how they feel. We go to the next slide. And we also recognize that kind of each of these groups of activities have their own value. No one tool is going to provide the perfect mix of outreach for everyone. And so that's why we really do try to delineate what the strengths are of each and use those strategically. So newsletters might help deliver very curated updates or provide a snapshot on something. News releases are a good way to educate our media partners who can be our megaphone and help shine light on issues at large. Direct mail, email obviously can be much more targeted. And then our board of directors activities, we really see as a way for us to hear from those who are most passionate about a topic, and that we take those very seriously. Our research then allows us to see from a more representative and random perspective, right, what perspectives might be. And then our websites, yes, they're certainly a way to educate, but also where people click, how they engage with those, tell us everything that we need to know about what people are caring about in terms of topics. And so we just wanted to show this, that no one tool really can do everything. This is an ecosystem in which we have to both educate broadly, narrowly, and provide many different channels to hear how our customers and stakeholders are receiving that. So I just wanted to offer that up and remind kind of our audience here, what we have.
Next slide further highlights a few of these additional tools, and I would just call out OPPD Community Connector. I know we've had some conversation around it. Kate hit on it, being our digital platform. We recognize here, we set this up with registration, really viewing it as a strength. So we know who we're hearing from. We can verify geographic representation as part of that, and also follow up with anyone that reaches out on that tool with accurate and tailored information. So we look at that tool not necessarily in terms of the volume of responses, but more so involving quality, validity, and actionable insights we can take from that. So we've tried to benchmark ourselves in a way of these tools as well, what other utilities are doing in this space involving that digital platform. And we consistently find that offering this and working with constituents through a process that gives verifiable information really builds credibility in providing public feedback and preventing any misuse or certainly duplicate submissions. So the last slide closes us out here, highlighting a couple of things. Effectiveness, we know, isn't necessarily measured solely by the number of posts or the number of clicks we have, but more about whether feedback is representative and informed and useful for decision making. So Kate hit on this as well. No single tool works in isolation. We're really looking at all these tools as one comprehensive, larger, robust system. And we try to be intentional and strategic in these, certainly revisit them and evaluate them ahead. And we're pretty confident, we feel, as we continually evaluate these to check and adjust, that the tools are functioning as they're designed and intended to really provide meaningful, verifiable, representative input. So we try to take a balanced approach in this, recognizing we're trying to make these tools broad and available for all of our customers and stakeholders, and give different opportunities for anonymous feedback as well as verifiable feedback. So with that, we'll welcome any questions or feedback you might have.
I'm curious, help me understand, user experience standpoint, the merits of having two different websites to go to. So I'm thinking about OPPD.com as like Community Connect, and then I'm forgetting one I don't know from me. The Wire, thank you. And then Storm and Outage is also one that kind of exists outside of that ecosystem. They all intertwine, but help me understand why four are necessary as opposed to sort of centralizing into one.
Well, I think that what everyone here can align on is we would love for all of those to be integrated, I think, in the future. So while we feel strongly that they each serve a purpose and we wouldn't want those purposes to go away in the future, we absolutely would love all of those to be integrated. The channels that we have right now, kind of were reflective of where we were at in terms of having secure platforms and making sure that the right tools were available in the right places. And so I think what you're pointing at is, yes, we will always work to better integrate those. And as it makes sense in our longer plan, we'd love to be able to do that. And we also know that we need to kind of maintain the platforms that they're at right now. So I think the idea is what we have right now, because they certainly are providing value. And then in the future, we would love to better integrate that. So you can go to an OPPD.com and be able to easily access that. To move us closer to that, you'll see that we've tried to make much more prominent on OPPD.com logos, ways to navigate to those separate sites. So it's as seamless as possible.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Just a comment. Thank you. I appreciate your explanation of why you want people to register on the Community Connect. Because I can see that that can be misused if people, and I think that's very reasonable. If I'm going to write to one of my elected officials, I'm gonna put my name and address and how to contact me back. So it may put some people off and feel like they're stepping out there, but if they have something substantial to offer and ideas they want to be considered, then they need to have the intestinal fortitude to go right ahead and do that. So I appreciate that explanation. Thank you.
Any other questions on this one?
What,
Oh, yeah.
may I ask one more? So if there was if somebody walks up to me and says, hey, what's going on at OPPD? General question, just, kind of like sort of how are you doing? Is there one place that you would suggest I direct them for the first and best information?
I would say, hey, first go to OPPD.com. We're constantly updating our rotator, linking to kind of prominent wire stories. And then I would say, if you want to go one step further, click on that little logo that says The Wire, and you can peruse to your heart's content on all different kinds of news and information. And also if we have any media partners online right now, they've been so fantastic about using and referencing that information, and really has become a great place for them to also kind of use the information that we are sharing in their own coverage. So I would say go to OPPD.com. And if you want to learn more just about things that have been recently happening, click on that OPPD The Wire logo.
Thank you. And may I just say, when I've read those articles, your writers are very good. Always appreciate the stories, and I know there's lots of media contacts that you get, and really appreciate the great response to them that you consistently deliver.
Well, thank you so much, Director Spurgeon. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Now back to Tim for the customer program measures.
Thank you, Director Howard. I will invite forward Brian Adams to create this. It'll be a brief update, but we wanted to create awareness with Customer and Public Engagement Committee and also with the public as one channel of many through which we communicate the availability of certain rebate programs that we have. So Brian will walk us through an update on our current status of those products and services that are supported by rebates, just by way of information. Brian?
Thank you very much. Good morning. Happy to be here with you. And so again, as Tim mentioned, this will be a brief update. We've gotten a number of customer inquiries, and so wanted to make the board and public aware of the current status of our various rebate and incentive programs. And so starting from the bottom, you can see that we have been closing out products this year earlier than we necessarily have in the past. The cost savings initiative and trying to ensure that we are keeping spending in line has affected this. And so we have closed out many of our incentive programs. What I'd like to focus on though is those that remain open. So weatherization is the opportunity to weatherize the home. That is also the mechanism we'll be using for those who have an outstanding impact from the declining block rate changes that were approved earlier this year. And so we'll be utilizing that program to ensure those customers that have an outsized impact are addressed and have an opportunity to help adjust on that front. In addition, our energy efficiency assistance program is the program that we use to work with our partners and help income qualified customers make energy efficient improvements to their homes as well. The two programs, Smart Thermostat and Cool Smart, are primary ways that our residential customers are able to help us with demand response. And so just yesterday, we called those programs. It is a way for OPPD to lower or shift load during the peak times of the year. A lot of people sign up for these and leave these programs every month, every day when a home is purchased, when a home is sold. When people move in and out of apartments, these programs constantly have people in and out of them, and so we are monitoring that all the time. So they remain open. The incentive payments go out in September, October timeframe. And so those remain open, although we are no longer very actively marketing them. Still welcoming. Yeah, open it up for questions.
About how many customers are in collectively the smart thermostat and cool smart?
Say a rough estimate would be about 60,000 residential customers.
Brian, I'm thinking about the sold out programs a little bit. I appreciate the focus on what's available, but I'm curious about the ones that were sold out, and in particular, I'm curious about impact, reactions, communications with the ecosystem of partners that we have to deliver a lot of that work, right? So I'm thinking, I don't know, maybe Solar Trade Ally is a good example. We don't do that work. We have allies that do that work, right? So how has the communication with those key stakeholders that we have, what's that been like? How's it gone? What's their response reaction? Just any flavor for how that's gone?
Yes, thank you for the question. We have been engaged with and communicative with our trade allies, with our business partners, all the builders that we work with on a regular basis in terms of the business programs. They're not thrilled, naturally. They are incentives that they sort of often built into their sales pitches, and so it hasn't been a positive or happy conversation. But, we have been intentional about getting messages out and letting folks know when programs close. We update the websites to make sure that the latest and best information is available online. And so we are doing our best to communicate with our partners who are out there.
But that's understandable, which has me then thinking about, like, they're all also probably planning for 26. And you'd be curious about where we're gonna hold in terms of which ones will be back and which ones won't. I mean, I'm not asking for clarity for which ones will be back and which ones won't. It's not reasonable at this point, but I assume that when we have better clarity, those communications will happen so that they can start planning for their, 26 and forward. Yeah.
Yes, I think that's fair.
Yeah.
Rebate programs?
Thank you.
They're done.
Great. Thank you. On to Director Moody for Finance Chair report.
But you see the Finance Committee pre-committee agenda in front of you. I thought we were going to set the record for the longest, but it looks like CPE was just as long. So maybe next time. We will get into. Okay, so looking at my notes, items 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 will all be covered separately as we go through this. So I'm not going to cover those in my chair's report. That leaves, other than just handling the business of the committee, item 11, the time-varying rate pilot timeline. We had a good discussion about that. And as all of you know, I think this is teed up for, I think, all committee discussion perhaps in September. Is kind of what, maybe I'm looking for some verification. I need to know how deep I need to go now before.
Yeah, I'll go to Mr. Underwood, but I think more to come on time. I didn't want to lock them into September, but more to come if they're ready in September.
Okay, so
one thing I think we were planning on doing is making this stop at systems.
so that the full board would see it if it still pleases the chair.
That's correct. Thanks. And Craig, you sent some information to systems as well already, right?
Yes,
That's-
so that's helpful. Thank you. So the deck that we reviewed as a committee was also sent to the systems committee for awareness. But obviously no discussion. It was just simply shared. So we'll give like a super high altitude update on what we've got going and about what's next then. A lot of this discussion was seated at the June all committee meeting when the board had some questions about what the schedule was for TBR and the pilot. More to come on exactly what that's going to look like, but broadly speaking, our committee received a high level overview of what the anticipated TBR pilot might look like, what its timing might be, the importance of an evaluation, measurement, and verification study, and how that fits in. I think one of the more important things that I think was an outcome is that the best practice is not to test multiple different types of rates in a pilot, but to test one. We don't have a large enough sample size to test multiple rates, which means that we're going to have to make decisions about what our rate is going to be when it comes to TBR. And there are a bunch of options. All of you in our rates 201 discussions got a good sense for what some of those are. So there are some really big decisions to be made before we even start going down the path of the pilot. The other thing that I think for me was really helpful to understand was two things. One is the fact that once we have meters installed, we need a year's worth of data to baseline our customers' behaviors before we actually test a rate that might change their behaviors. So that's 2 years worth of time right there. And then the second thing that I think is really important as we think about scheduling and what's in front of us here is, I'll speak for myself. I've been thinking about this largely as understanding our customers and customer readiness to adopt TBR. One of the things that I heard in rates 201 that was really important for me is it's also about organizational readiness, having all of our systems in place so that we can handle it as it comes up. So at least at this point, there was an exploration of adjusting the timeline forward to the left by 12 months. There are a couple really key reasons why that's likely not going to be the case. The technology systems are massive that we're touching here. They're all integrated. We're touching a lot of stuff. And so getting our meter data management system, our customer care and billing, our customer platform, all to sync up at the right times is going to be a Herculean effort that is really important. And then secondly, again, back to that data, we need a year's worth of baseline before we start testing what TBR rates might be like. So that's super high altitude. The committee asked a lot of questions. And again, all of us were involved in rates 201, where we got a deep dive on a lot of what's happening in the larger utility ecosystem around TBR rates. So I'll stop there. There's more to come. For just awareness, like pre-pilot is intended to start kind of second quarter 2026. So meter install, soft launch coming up later this year. So you've all got access to the information. It sounds like systems committee is going to get a deep dive here in the next month. I didn't miss anything super consequential. I tried to stay at a high altitude. Anything important?
You mentioned, thank you. Fantastic job describing these. You also talked about the systems that need to be put in place, which is very true. The hardware is also very important.
Yeah.
Meters, right? And so I think this is when this topic is very important. I would say it's not ripe enough for us to. I think it's important to give a general timeline, expectations, etc. But really, from an organization's perspective, I want to make sure that we focus on the deployment of meters, on the communication of the metering infrastructure, right? The adoption of the meter itself, which will be shortly followed by adoption of rates and different behaviors, etc. But I think this is where we're putting in first the attention to the meter itself. Having a successful adoption and deployment of that is essential for us to have time varying.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay. Pausing for any quick questions on that without getting too far into the weeds. Great, so let's move on. That's the finance chair's report. Grants update, Mr. McAreevy.
Thank you, Director Moody. I will invite forward Carissa Vlasic. Carissa will lead us through an update on the activity around key grants that we have been awarded and continuing to work through, as well as some others that we see potential for. So Carissa, thank you.
Good morning. Happy to be here to give you a brief grants update on all the activity PPD is involved in with grants. And it's been interesting, right? I'm sure you're reading the headlines about different things going on, federal government grants. So I'll start off with a funded grant, excuse me, that we have called JTIQ. It's to build 2 transmission projects. OPPD received about $87 million from the Department of Energy. 345 kV lines. The status of this one is the prime recipient is the Minnesota Department of Commerce. They've a signed grant agreement with DOE, and we're working through all the utility subrecipient agreements. So as a matter of fact, today in my inbox is a draft agreement of our grant agreement that we need to review and get that back and hopefully get that signed. So it's been a long process to get all the utility partners subrecipient agreements signed. Let's see, OPPD has a NTC from SPP that was executed back in July.
That's a notice to construct.
Sorry, thank you, notice to construct. A lot of acronyms on this slide here. And should be noted that this grant program is under review by the Department of Energy. They're going through each kind of like cluster of grants, going back, reviewing them to move them forward. So that is still under review. We don't have any reason to believe it wouldn't move forward. Received a data request, we responded to it, provided DOE all the information. So we feel good about where this is at. Just kind of waiting for that final kind of approval from DOE.
Can you remind us, notice to construct on all portions of the JTIQ, or what portions are notice to construct?
For OPPD, it was 2 transmission lines. Yeah, 245 kV. Yep. Next one I'll highlight is a Department of Energy grant again that we received to do some grid resiliency modernization work. This is about $8 million worth. This was secured through a congressionally directed spending project through Congressman Bacon's office. This one's been a long road, just trying to get to a grant agreement. The reason being the turmoil and upheaval with the Department of Energy. I think we're on our 4th grant officer, just trying to get a grant agreement signed. So finally have some communication reestablished. There was no communication for a while. So we're in negotiations. This one's going well. We expect to have a grant agreement signed by October of this year and start the work in 2026. So very anxious to kind of get this work underway. Just it's been a long road just to get these grant agreements signed and in place so we can begin the work. Next slide.
Oh, wait a second. What type of projects are included in that particular?
So that one's got 3 separate sub-projects underneath. It's some overhead to underground, it's reclosers. It's focused on our distribution system. Yeah, appreciate the question. Thank you. Slide. A little bit of other updates. So I know we've all heard about Solar for All program. It's been in the news a lot lately. OPPD is not a recipient of this award, but we were in communications with the Center for Rural Affairs, who did receive a $62 million award. Customer service team had been leading conversations, staying engaged with CFRA. And unfortunately, just recently, they received a termination notice from the EPA, terminating their funds. So they had just issued an RFP to do some community solar projects. We were having discussions with them. I think the next step might be some legal action by CFRA to try and restore their funds. So that was kind of on pause, I would say, while we kind of wait to see what happens with the legal process. The next one is called Nebraska One Grant, also EPA grant awarded to the Nebraska Department of Environment, Water, Environment, Energy. They changed their name. Also kind of on hold, waiting to see what the status of those funds are going to be. Both of these were funded under the Inflation Reduction Act, so not quite sure what's gonna happen. So in conversations being led by customer service, we'll just keep in contact with them. I'll wait to see what happens with those funds. And then just two more updates. There was an executive order issued.
Can we go back to the
Oh,
one red,
do I
because
do
we
that?
may have some updates.
If I could just, if you said the one red grant, portions of it have been advanced to the state and are planning to be deployed. So,
Yeah. Do that clarification.
Let's share a little bit of good news, right?
Yes, a little bit of good
Not
news
bad.
as well.
Yep. It's. Yeah, they're optimistic on those funds, the Nebraska.
We actually have some that actually been released.
Yes. Yep.
Or what's the nature of what's been, what's the focus? Is it relate to our work or is it water focused or?
It's going to focus on some of our work. They're going to be using some of the funds, working with the Summer Foundation to support agronomists. There's about 10 million acres of cropland in the state, as an example, that doesn't have a crop management plan. Hiring and training agronomists to say identify low margin lands for utility grade solar, help us identify those type of items. Some other work is supporting grants, some of it around water, but most of it's going to be at this point targeted towards energy for now.
Let's see, August 7th, President Trump issued an executive order called Improving Oversight of Federal Grant Making. This applies to all discretionary grants. It's my understanding it doesn't apply to the disaster funding to FEMA. Each agency is going to designate a senior appointee to review and approve all new funding announcements. So nothing is going to be released until this process is put into place. No new funding. And the funding that will be released has to advance the president's policy priorities. So this is just I've not seen this in my work as a grant professional. It's new. Work through this process. I think the projects that we do have and plan to hopefully apply for do fit within the administration's priorities. So, and we are evaluating new grant applications, not just focused on the ones that are funded and executed, but we're looking at new grants coming out from the Department of Defense for some modernization resiliency projects at Offutt, and also looking at an EDA grant, Economic Development Administration grant, with a partnership to do some work. We don't want to give away too much about these because they haven't been written yet. So just know that we're looking for new funding opportunities. However, this executive order may impact the timing of when these get released. So I believe that's the end of the grants update. It's not all bad news, a lot of good news. OPPD is in a good position. The projects that we're putting forward do align with the administration's priorities. So we're just doing what we can control, getting ready internally for compliance. So that's the end of my update. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, follow-up questions about grants update? Hearing none, thank you very much. Greatly appreciated. We are going to move on to the second quarter 2025 financial report. Folks are closed on TQ. So I think Brad is going to tee up Laura to talk to us about financial.
Yes, sir. Ms. Langford is our corporate controller, and she's here to walk us through the second quarter financial report along with the two subsequent items I'll introduce when she.
All right, we'll go ahead and move forward. We're going to talk about the second quarter. As we said, we did meet with the Finance Committee earlier this month, went through a deep dive. What we'll talk about today is really looking at actuals compared to budget. But when we met with the committee, we not only looked at that, but also looked at comparisons of year over year. So we'll go down to the next slide and pull up the dashboard. So as I summarized so far through Q2, we've had some financial challenges. We've had more expenses than we expected, particularly with the March blizzard. And we've had some lower retail revenues. That kind of summarizes the year, but we'll talk about a few more details as we go through this. So we're going to start in the upper left with retail revenue. And you can see there year to date, we are under budget, about $14 million. That is primarily due to lower usage than we had planned on the industrial side, just due to delays in load timing. This is where I'd like to call out, though, when you look at a year over year perspective, we can really see the growth in the industrial category. It's just not quite keeping up with what we expected from a budget perspective. Moving down one to off-system revenue, you can see here that we are over budget, about $42 million. The majority of that is related to congestion hedging revenue that we receive in the SPP marketplace. We've also seen some higher market prices as well. So as we shift over to fuel and purchase power, that kind of rounds out our net power costs. And I mentioned higher prices. You can see here that we are over budget about $39 million. Part of that is from those higher market prices that we're seeing, but we've also had higher purchase volumes as well in the marketplace. We've had outages that we've experienced this year, causing us to purchase more on SPP. And then to go up to the upper right, we have other O&M expense. So this is all the other O&M expenses besides fuel and purchase power. You can see here we're over budget about $13 million. The bulk of the over budget is related to the storm costs that we had for March. That is partially, though, offset by some lower production expenses that we had. And this is through the end of June, as we had some shifts in some outages as well. And then just to round out this page on the bottom, we have other income and other expense. You can see both of these have green diamonds. Other income, we are over budget about $26 million. This is primarily from positive investment income that we've had this year, and then also higher allowances for funds used during construction. We've had more capital costs that have been subject to us having the AFUDC that we've recognized. And then other expenses, you can see we are under budget here. About $34 million. Most of that relates to lower interest expense, but it's kind of a unique lower interest expense as we had a one-time adjustment we recorded in May as my team transitioned to a new software that helps us manage our debt expenses. And to align our methodologies to kind of true that up, we had a recognition of $18.5 million in May that was helping offset that. Any questions on this page before we go to the next page? Okay. All right, so shifting to the next page. On the left, we have operating income and net income. You can see these are a little different. Operating income has that red diamond, net income is green. From an operating income perspective, through the end of June, we're running behind budget about $7 million. It's really a summarization of those top four quadrants on the page before. On the operating side, we've just had higher expenses and some lower revenue that has offset us to be under from an operating income perspective. When you shift down to net income, we are running above budget. This is where we get the benefits of the additional investment income that we're receiving, as well as lower interest expense. It's kind of helping offset that on a net income perspective. And then looking at the right-hand side, we have cash and capital. You can see cash, especially in that second quarter, you can see we're well above what we expected to be, about $365 million. That's really just from a timing difference. We had originally planned for the bond issuance we had to settle in the third quarter. It settled very late in the second quarter, and so we received that cash earlier than we had planned for in the budget. And then on capital, you can see that we are above budget on that, about $27 million through the end of June. Something that we're watching really closely is we have a lot of capital projects this year, particularly with the work we have on the new turbines, just watching that forecast as we move throughout the year. And then lastly on this page, the SD impact, SD2, you can see that we are meeting that metric. This is based on the most recent EIA information that we have. We should be getting the most updated coming soon in the next month or so. At the final information we have right now, we're at 15.8% below that defined 7-state region. And then at SD3, our debt service coverage at the end of June, it's a 12-month rolling. We were at 1.92 times. That is behind our metric of 2.0 times, but we are forecasting that we'll be at 2.0 times by the end of the year. And then the second portion of that related to liquidity, we did increase our days cash on hand from the end of March to 203 days, and that puts us well above our minimum of 100 days of cash on hand. Are there any questions?
It's okay, Chair. I just offer a supplemental comment. We've talked fairly consistently, but intermittently in some of the committees on the cost management. I think you're seeing the benefit of that as we bend the O&M line down. That has come with an organizational focus that has had its impacts. Talked about some of those in other settings. The other thing is the revenue line. Been working very closely with Tim and his team to ensure that the frequency in which we cycle with our large customers around the impacts in their businesses, whether it's building facilities, whether it's a commodity-based business, a lot of ag and oil and gas, believe it or not, midstream in our system. We've been working to really cycle hard with a lot of those customers to enhance predictability for revenues through the end of the year. And the idea is both the expense reduction and recovering the revenue as close as possible as we had expected to recover would come together to maintain strong metrics at the end of the year. And we're going to have to continue to work on that. And so I just wanted to make that come alive as we saw the scoreboard. That's what's behind the scoreboard, in addition to executing our core business. Thank you for letting me make those.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, Brad. Colleagues, questions? Javier, want to invite you if there's anything that you want to highlight.
Sure, at the risk of being repetitive, so I'll try not to repeat what Brad said, but this doesn't happen by accident. What you're seeing could be interpreted as just a boring order. Right? Yeah, we're meeting everything. It looks a little bit higher, a little bit lower in different places. This has been a labor of love from the organization. It has taken the entirety of the organization to change course, adjust expenses, adjust to revenues, so that we can come in halfway through the year and deliver these results. Had we not done all the work that we have done through the month of August, these results would be significantly different. The fact that we're looking at ending the year still today, I'm not going to fake wood here. We're looking at ending the year at 2 times above the 2 times debt service coverage. We're looking at ending the year with a fully funded rate stabilization account. If you remember correctly, last year we had to dip into that fund to smooth out rate increases. Our commitment was we're going to fill that account again, and we're looking at ending the year with a fully funded account. 200+ days cash on hand by the end of the year. I mean, this is it. I want to commend the finance organization, especially Beth Hoyle is not here, but with her steady hand and her team with budget, financial planning and analysis, Laura Langford, John Thurber helping us with investments and debt. I mean, it has been a lot of work, and it's not just finance, right? It's the entire organization. Troy, your team, and Gina, Tim, everybody, Kate, Scott, Mikkel, we've leaned in, we've made informed decisions, risk-based decisions. We've incurred in risks, of course, as we're trying to lower expenses. But I feel very comfortable that we have a solid path to ending the year in a really good position financially.
Thank you. Colleagues, questions?
Compliments. Yeah. Pretty amazing. Really.
I will ask one question. So looking at, sorry, I got into the detail, which we got into the finance committee, but I know that we've talked about this as a board a little bit, but I'm looking at retail revenue by class. Residential is roughly flat, commercial's up a little bit, industrial's off by 7.4% for the year. I'm just kind of curious about what we know in terms of how they're going to come in for the second half of the year.
Yeah, those are a lot of the conversations we've been wading through. I'll try and bucket the variances in a couple of different general areas. One of the issues we're having is there's a subset of rates where there's an optimization on the part of the customer, and they switch rates when it makes sense for them. And many times we help them with that, and Tim's team, I think, does a nice job of that, and others will help people with that. What that has done to us is it creates a class variance. And we'll talk more about this in the rate plan because we want to make this visible to the board. So specifically what's happening is when there's a subset of our offerings, when a customer switches, they move from the industrial to the commercial. And so that's something that I think I want to talk about with the finance committee as to whether or not that's happening and we want it to happen. So that's going on. The other thing is there's load timing aspects of this, also weather aspects of this. And so we talked a little bit about that in 201 as far as you plan for a 15-year weather normalized. If you have that, great. If you don't, then you're going to live with the variance. And so prior to the summer, we had lower sales because of that dynamic. As we've moved through the summer, we've found some heat, as some people may have noticed. And so I hope that allows us to more properly recover the costs that we were projecting to cover based on the normal weather throughout the year, but we'll have to see how that goes. Anything more specific than that, I would need to come from.
Got it.
But I would say just yes, and I think, you know, it's really reflecting the status of the economy. We have experienced a slowdown in economic activity from customers, all commercial, industrial. As Brad said in a very technical manner, it's been very mild first half of the year, so even retail, residential customer revenue has been lower than expected. We have experienced a warmer summer, so we're hoping that that will offset some of the losses we got at the beginning of the year. But I think I don't want to minimize the fact that, you know, the Nebraska economy has contracted. And even though we're not in a service territory necessarily that subject to the volatility that ag communities have experienced, we are certainly part of the state. So I don't want to minimize that part here. Yes, there were customer shifts, and you will see some of the losses in industrial mean gains in commercial, et cetera. But I think there's a healthy element here of a slowing down of the economic activity, which means slowing down of load used and manufacturing lines moving forward, et cetera, that our customers have been more bearish as opposed to the beginning of the year.
Yep.
Thank you. That was great. Appreciate it. I don't have any further questions. Pausing for anything from the board. Okay, that concludes that one. I lost my place. What's up next? Thank you, man. Regulatory.
Yeah, the regulatory accounting for storm costs. Just give an illustrative example for those of you that own businesses or involved in businesses. You have a revenue, you have an expense, and at the end of the year, you have net income. That's a matching principle. And so all of the revenue and the expenses are matched within the year, and it gives a net number. We have some matching issues from when we incur expenses to when the receipts are collected, and that complicates our ability to give our customers a smooth, steady rate. And so Ms. Lincoln is going to talk about two of those issues, and Laura, I'll pass it over.
All right, so the first item that we're going to talk about is storm costs, and this probably sounds familiar to most of you. We talked about this last year as well. 2024, we had significant storm costs. We came to the board in the fall and asked for approval to use regulatory accounting for those costs. And so I'm here again to talk about that relative to 2025. So we had the March blizzard and incurred significant costs, had significant outages. FEMA has declared that as a disaster that qualifies for reimbursement. So we are expecting reimbursement from FEMA. Generally, as Brad said, our accounting standards would say you recognize those costs when you incur those. So this year, you would recognize that grant revenue when you get that. And there's some complications with FEMA. It's not an immediate get that grant revenue. We have to work through each project. There's usually a mismatch in what year those occur in. And so to have us better match that, we want to use regulatory accounting. Our accounting standards also allow us to use regulatory accounting as the state, or the rate setting body for OPPD has the authority to approve the use of regulatory accounting as it impacts customer rates and when we recover those costs through our revenue. So as part of that, if we go down to the next slide, as Brad said, we'd like to use regulatory accounting for these storm costs. That would allow us to take the storm costs for the March blizzard, take that portion that's reimbursable, move that out of our income statement for the year, hold as a regulatory asset, and then we would recognize that in future years when we receive that grant revenue to allow us to better match that up. So that way we don't have a mismatch in that timing. That puts you in a position to not be over collecting revenue in future years or under collecting this year when we incurred those storm costs. We go to the next slide. So we are asking the board to approve the use of regulatory accounting for the March 2025 blizzard, as well as any other 2025 storm that we would have that would qualify for FEMA funding. As of right now, we did just have a recent storm. We don't know if that will qualify yet for FEMA funding, but if it is, we would like to apply that same regulatory accounting just to make sure that we have the proper match for that. So that is what we have for that one. Any questions? Sorry, Brad, can I go down one more slide? I want to mention the estimates again for the March storm. I know we've talked about it being 35 million. Our estimate is still around 35 million. The reason it still says estimate, you might be thinking that storm was in March, aren't they final yet? We had a lot of mutual aid crews here, and so it takes quite a bit of time to get all those invoices in. We still do not have all the mutual aid invoices in. We're continuing to accrue for that every month, but those have not been finalized. So if we have the approval to use regulatory accounting, we estimate it'd be about a little over $30 million that we would remove from the income statement, hold as a regulatory asset, and then recognize that later. And that's based on the recovery rate of 87.5%. That's been our recent experience with FEMA.
Laura, is there a minimum dollar level that makes something eligible for FEMA? Dollar, what is the cutoff?
Yes, so it varies by county. And so the recent storm we had, we have an estimate for that. And we have just reported that to both MEMA and the counties. Each county is different. You might imagine Douglas County has a higher threshold they have to achieve for it to qualify. So I'd say that typically, usually the way it works is the storms that are the bigger counties usually meet those thresholds. I think Douglas County is around 2 million, I believe is what theirs, and some of the smaller counties are lower than that.
Mutual aid payments, we're not holding funds to reimburse those entities in the future once we get paid, or they send us an invoice for the work that they did.
Yes, yeah, we pay them right away and then we get reimbursed later from FEMA.
Can you talk a little bit about the expected recovery relative to past events? There has been additional discussion about expenditures at the federal level. Do you want to elaborate on, do we anticipate, we are basing our future expected recovery on the past, any expectation that might change?
At this point, we don't expect that it will change. And just like Chris has shared with the executive order earlier this month, that does not include disaster recovery funds. So we do still expect to receive those funds. The timing though is what I'd say might be a little different. We did see last year, it took a little bit longer for storms to get declared last year, and this year it took longer. March didn't get declared, I think, until the end of May. That's a little longer for a storm of that size than we used to experience. FEMA has also implemented some additional reviews. So if an individual project is over 100,000, we have some that are actually under that, but then we do have many that are over that. There's now an additional layer review that is new under the current administration. So the timing of when we receive it will be longer, which really regulatory accounting really helps in this case too, when you have that time frame that is so different from when we have the expenses versus when we actually can recognize that revenue.
And from past events, what's been the timeline to get the recovery accomplished? Is that on the order of, I have experienced projects like that were multiple years. Is that OPPD's experience as well?
Yes.
Okay.
And I would say there's a difference too between us recognizing the revenue and reporting a receivable and then actually getting the cash. So that's even longer. I think we still have maybe a 2019 project that we still, very small, but we're still waiting for final.
I want to say since 2019, we've had 11 events. And so unfortunately, we've had plenty of practice. Our teams have improved their processes. It was a lot. Last year alone, in 1 year, were 6 of those 11 happened in 1 year. That was last year. Thankfully, we have a good track record. Part of it is just a lot of communication about coordinates, GPS coordinates, pictures of holes, and all these things that I would say 15 years ago we were not ready for that. Now we're in a much better space. But to your point, Director Williams, all of this depends on 2 things. One, that FEMA remains, and that FEMA continues to have funds, and that these type of disasters continue to be approved by the president. There have been already a few storms earlier this year that were denied. We haven't experienced that, thankfully, but that is something that is top of mind, not only for me, but I would say for the rest of the nation. Mm-hmm. If that funding goes away, then the way we recover for costs would have to significantly change.
Yeah, our ratepayers affected.
Our ratepayers.
Sorry, so this storm has already been declared.
Yes.
Okay, and then I guess my last question was the backstop. If there is a variance here and recovery is not possible, is that it goes into general expense and translates across to the wider budget. Okay. Thank you.
And the FEMA payout is not 100% generally correct. It's 0%.
Correct, 87.5%. And part of that, about 75% of that is from FEMA itself, and then 12.5% is from the state. From
87 total.
87 total, correct.
And another good reminder, a few years ago, and this is back when I was CFO, we made some decisions, and we don't budget year over year for potential storm damage. And what has afforded us that luxury in great part is receiving these type of funds. So Director Williams, to your question, if that were to go away, what would happen is, well, we'd have to recover for this year, but also going forward, we would have to start building yet another reserve to account for these things, which again goes back to regulations.
Periodically too, there's questions on why the cash balance is so high. This is why they're so high. And because the board has asked us to be AA2, AA, which is just a notch below the federal government at this point, we can weather this kind of thing and not disrupt customers. And that is a liquidity issue. Laura's not talking about the liquidity aspect of it. So we've been managing the flow, for lack of a better term. And you know, we had another storm a week ago that looks like it's about $8 million. So if you just look at these two, that's $4 or $5 million there, and that's $8 million there. And there's a lot of headwinds and tailwinds, you know, that used to make some of them kind of come alive. This is what we're moving through, which is fine, because we do this.
Okay. And just for our awareness, confirming, this is not approval just for this. This is in anticipation of any remaining storms.
Right, for 2025, just for this year.
If they're declared to Director Williams' questions, yes.
Okay, this will be a board action item for us. Thank you, Laura. Keep going.
Yes, please.
All right, sounds good. Debt retirement reserve account.
One more on timing.
Here we go.
Ms. Langford.
All right, so this is another regulatory accounting item, the debt retirement reserve account. And so this is an account that OPPD used previously. Back in 2004, the board approved the use of regulatory accounting to establish this account. And that was back when we were in a period of capital growth, sounds similar to where we're at right now. And it was to give us the flexibility then to kind of meet the financial challenges we had associated with reducing future debt and maintaining our debt service coverage while we were in that capital growth period. That account was used from 2004 to 2013. It was fully depleted by then. It was a high, I think, of 95 million. If I went back and looked at my historical financials, about 95 million was the high, fully depleted by 2013 and was a zero balance. And then in 2016, the board of directors approved us repurposing that account. And that's when we created the new decommissioning and benefits reserve account. That's an account we still use. That account has about a $5 million balance. So we had this account, became zero, sat zero for several years, and then it was repurposed. All right, we can go to the next slide. So now that we are in this period of growth as well, where we are issuing additional debt to support our capital program, we would like to reestablish this debt retirement reserve account. Again, that gives us that flexibility to offset higher debt service in future years while we're supporting gradual rate increases and maintaining our rate stability. I won't go over the regulatory account again. We just talked about that with the storm. But again, this is an item that would require board approval as our rate setting body to be able to use this regulatory accounting. That's because of that last bullet there. When we establish this account and you add funds to it, what we're doing is we're taking revenues from one year, removing it from our income statement, holding it as a regulatory liability. And then later when we use it, that you reduce that liability and add it back as revenue. So in essence, you're taking revenues from one year and moving it to a future year. And so we were able to do that through the use of regulatory accounting. Let's go to the next slide. And so at this point, again, where we are at with the period of significant capital expenditures we have and the additional long-term debt we're issuing, we are asking the board to approve the use of regulatory accounting to reestablish this debt retirement reserve account that we had years ago. And it would give us that, again, that flexibility to be able to manage future debt service, retire our future debt, but then still keep those rate increases gradual and support rate stability. And so we are asking for that approval. That'll also be an approval item for the board as well to use that regulatory accounting. I know that was really quick. Are there questions about this?
Is there any downside to doing this, establishing this?
I don't think there's any downside to it. It's really a tool for us to be able to have the flexibility to utilize that. And we are fortunate as a regulated entity that because our rates are set by the board, that we have that flexibility to do that, where most other companies would not have that flexibility to try and match it up with our rate collection from customers.
I'll tell you so from on my very old investment banker hat. Allowing these really opens up a ton of really valuable tools for the district. In an era, I would say in a decade, when we're investing a lot of money in capital, and we're gonna be issuing a lot of debt, having this tool allows Brad's team, John Thurber's team, to go out and issue debt in the best possible way. Sometimes that debt means we would have a spike in debt service on a specific year. Overall, that's the best outcome for the district, interest-wise. But if we don't do these, we would have to raise rates a lot in one year and then bring them back down, and that's not a good practice. So this allows us to start setting monies aside so we can have a smooth debt service that's created by these accounts.
So it's kind of in addition to the rate stabilization account, it's another.
Imagine it's like a rate stabilization account. This is like a debt stabilization.
Okay.
It allows us to smooth that out. Yes.
Figures it out because they function very much the same. The accounting is going to work the same. The way it goes in and out of the income statement is the same. They just have a different.
I think, so to differentiate them, I want to make sure I'm understanding this correctly. The rate stabilization fund, we're actively putting money into it, right? So like, I'm just thinking about cash and available cash on hand. Whereas this is a regulatory accounting activity, which doesn't, as I think about it, it doesn't require us to grab money and like, it's just moving it around from one year to the next. Is that right? The accounting side of it?
These one, we know exactly how much money we're gonna need on a certain year. And so we start putting money towards that, and then we swipe that account empty, or we use a lot of that money to pay that debt service.
Okay.
The rate stabilization account, we don't know when we're gonna need it. We needed it last year. It's one where we don't deposit monies every year. We did go from 50 million to $76 million a couple of years ago, acknowledging that the organization is much larger. That money sits there. There's no need to use regulatory accounting necessarily for that one because it's sitting there and we use it against rate increases to smooth out rate increases, but the use and the timing of that is unknown.
That's good.
Does that help?
Yep, totally. Yeah.
Sorry, Brad, I should have let you answer.
That was great.
Sorry.
Does this affect pilot payments in any way?
Pilot payments are determined based on the revenue from those incorporated towns, so it doesn't impact.
So this isn't a revenue shifting. It's just moving it to when we're. All right, thank you.
Okay, and this also will be an action item for us. There's a draft of the resolution in your deck if you need it. Otherwise, I think we're good there. Thanks, Laura. And Director Chair did let me know that we're going to finish out finance before we take a break. So we're going to keep trucking along. Thanks. Annual report of the interest rate on customer security deposits.
Yeah, thank you, sir. John Petrulis, our treasury manager, is here to walk us through the next two items. For various reasons, we end up having deposits from customers, and in order to treat them as equitably as possible, we give them a return on the deposit that we hold on their behalf. And so John's here to kind of walk us through where that rate is going and to make sure that we do that well. So,
thank you. Yeah, as Brad said, we do pay interest on customer deposits. And this report item basically covers what the interest rate will be for the upcoming year. So for the prior year, we paid 3.5%, and that's effective until August 31st of this year. The interest rate's based upon the last 12 months of average earnings on those customer deposits. So it's backward looking, and based upon that, we are going to pay the interest rate will change to 3.75% effective September 1st of 25. Pretty quick. Any questions on that? Okay. We can move on then to the retirement plan.
Yep. Keep going.
Okay. So we covered in the second quarter performance of the retirement plan. So retirement plan ended the second quarter with a balance of $1.33 billion, which was an increase over $1.26 billion in the first quarter. During the quarter, the benefit payments exceeded contributions by about $7 million, but investment gains were about $78 million for the quarter. The plan continues to be within its the asset allocation within the policy guidelines. And so for the quarter, the plan returned 6%. That was versus a 6.5% for the index. And it's much better than the 0.1% return that was gained in the first quarter of the year. So we've seen a lot of, seen some positive nature of it. Year to date, the plan has returned 6.3%. And these are all net of fees numbers. For the quarter, the domestic equity composite returned 9%. Large caps continue to do better than small caps, and growth continues to do better than value. I just read something really interesting too. The top 5 stocks in the United States, the top 5 largest capitalization stocks in the United States are greater than any other market in the entire world. Like it's amazing. 5 stocks are greater than every single market in the entire world. So obviously the NVIDIAs, Microsofts, and so forth continue to do very well. The international equity composite returned 12.3%, which is extremely strong, and has been extremely strong for the year. International equities, they kind of have the benefit. There's been more stimulus in international equities, plus just their valuations are so much lower than what are in the United States. So the return is very good, and that hasn't really occurred in the last few years. So that's nice to see. Fixed income returned 1.3% for the quarter, and the global fixed income returned 3.4%. Real estate returned 1.3%, which was better than the index, and we haven't seen that for a while. So that's a positive we like to see in the plan. We did have there's 3 manager changes. We hired 2 new companies during the second quarter. So we have Kane Anderson replaced Wellington as the mid-cap equity manager, and then Acadian replaced Invesco and Allspring in the emerging market. So we replaced 2 managers with 1 manager. We didn't think that having 2 managers in that space still made sense because of just their styles kind of converge. One used to be more growth and one used to be more value, but they kind of converge. So it just seemed to make sense to replace them with 1 manager. So with that, I'd open it up for any questions.
John, can you remind us what's the discount rate for the pension plan?
Yes, thank you. It's 6.5%. So the 6.3% year to date, we're getting close to what it was. During that first quarter, when we were looking at the retirement plan, we started thinking like, are we going to have to start thinking about additional contributions and so forth? But it just shows you sometimes you just kind of wait. We don't know what's going to happen for the rest of the year, but we are at least approaching what the 6.5% discount rate.
It is important, just a reminder, the way we calculate our pension contribution amounts assume that the fund will earn 6.5% for the year. What I'm hearing from you is we are well on track to do that. Of course, things may happen and things have happened in the past. I don't want to necessarily claim victory here, but I think it's important to remember why is this number important is because we have to compare it to the 6.5% that we are assuming the fund will earn.
That's exactly it. So in everything you see, even the fixed incomes being much better. When we were just a couple of years ago, when you're getting virtually 0 or less than 1% on fixed income, it was much harder to reach the goal too. So it's good to see that the fixed income number is now increased also.
And private credit continues to be what you.
Yep, private credit still it's continuing to be very good. You see all the returns on private credit are they're all delayed. 3 to 6 months is just hard to get some of that information. But I think that the internal rate of returns that we've received for both of these managers since we've gotten them are both over 10%, which is incredible because we replaced essentially some fixed income securities with private credit. So it's been a very good asset class for OPPD to have invested in.
Okay. Very good. Any other questions? You're none. You're good. Thank you. We sold some electric system revenue bonds. John Thurber's going to give us an update.
Director Thurber is here. He leads our treasury functions. And, we come back periodically, we talk about a bond transaction. I'll just remind folks, it's not easy to raise hundreds of millions of dollars, let alone half a billion. So John and his team do a really nice job of walking us through that. Our business is exceptionally capital intensive. I think the CEO has been sharing some of those stats with all as you are having some of your discussions. But John, it's great to close on a nice transaction. And so could you please review that for us briefly?
Thank you. Thank you, CFO Underwood. Appreciate the opportunity to discuss our bond transaction that we had here. We actually sold the bonds in at the end of May and closed on the transaction in June. But to kind of reiterate, the board gave us authority to issue up to $2 billion worth of debt as of the end of 2025. That was a 2-year authorization that included 2024, which we had issued almost $1 billion in 2024. So this additional issuance that we just got done completing was about $503.5 million. So about half of what we had available we used for this transaction. It is really going for the new projects that we have at Turtle Creek and Cass County Station. So that $503 million are really focused on those two, essentially the new turbine projects that we have in place. We used an investment banking team led by Goldman Sachs and Wells Fargo. And we went to market at the end of May 28th. It was a very successful day in the marketplace. We ended up with most of the maturities that we issued being oversubscribed, which meant that there were more investors interested in our maturities than we had maturities available. And so we were actually able to reduce the interest rate on those maturities in the range between 2 and 5 basis points. That was enough to actually drop our overall yield. The overall yield was 4.73%. And we were able to on that date actually drop it by a couple of basis points. And so that was a very positive note on OPPD. And obviously our AA2, AA rating really plays into the demand that investors have for our investments. And so we did settle that transaction on June 25th successfully. And that money is going to pay for our new turbines as we speak. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you have about the bond issuance.
Congratulations. That's great to hear that there was more demand than supply. That's really fantastic. Colleagues, any questions?
In the second quarter financial report, we highlighted an increase in revenue, and this is that increase because it appeared in Q2 rather than Q3, correct?
This we would, great comment, this we would recognize as a cash balance.
Oh, sorry. Thank you, good catch. But that is what we talked about earlier in that report, correct?
Yes, sir, the cash balance increase relative to the budget was higher because this issuance was sooner than we were expecting. Yes.
Thank you.
And just to highlight again, it's OPPD's excellent credit rating that made it possible for there to be a little bit of a tussle about who bought the investments.
Well, it certainly plays a very strong impact on the demand that we see for our investments. There's not a lot of utilities that are at the AA2 rating. And so you see a lot of investors that line up because they know that we're a very secure credit.
This will kind of bleed into our next agenda item on the springing indenture, but the federal government was just downgraded to AA1. And so we're AA2. So within the AA tranche, we're right behind the federal government. I don't necessarily say that like that's necessarily an accomplishment for OPPD relative to what's happening with the federal government, but it is an important data point relative to our proximity to the most sure thing on the planet, to my understanding. And so I got some feedback from a colleague recently that said, hey, people have a harder time following 2 times debt service coverage, but they really understand that we have one of the highest credit ratings in the electric utility industry, and we're exceptionally close to the federal government. That lands better. So I've been trying to do a better job of articulating that. So I just, for those listening, I hope that helps.
Yeah. That's a good summary, and I think he's right. Yeah, that resonates with more people. Super helpful. Okay, any other questions about the issuance or comments? You segued, you teed it up, so let's go on to the last one.
Last one, final here.
Action item before us. Go ahead, Brad.
Resolution 1788 is the governing document where the board authorizes the management team to issue debt on behalf of the organization. We're happy to do that periodically as we need to. There are specific requirements in Resolution 1788 that the board expects management to abide by. Those requirements are also used on the street. So when a bondholder buys OPPD debt, they look at these requirements to make sure that we're in compliance with what the board, which is the governing body, had expected us. And so we've had a recent issue with the federal government's credit rating. And so we've got to ask the board to be able to deal with that reality that the federal government is not AAA by rating agencies now. So John's here to walk us through a springing adventure, and he'll unpack some of the nuances behind that.
Thank you, Brad. As Brad mentioned, Resolution 1788, it was originally issued in 1972, and it's the governing document when we issue debt. So it governs how we can issue debt, the various rules, how we're going to pay our debt holders, but it also covers the investments that the proceeds can be invested in. And with that, there are quite a few investments. There's over $1 billion worth of investments right now that we have that are tied to Resolution 1788. And you can see we talk about our revenue fund. That's our operating funds, construction fund. Obviously, we just funded that with the new turbine projects, our debt service and reserve accounts. All of those are affiliated with Resolution 1788, our governing document for our debt issuance. And the investments that we can invest in, the existing guidelines under 1788 says that we can invest in U.S. government obligations, like U.S. Treasury bills and U.S. Treasury notes, but we can also invest in U.S. government agency obligations. And those agency obligations have to be rated AAA by one of the nationally recognized rating agencies. Well, next slide, please.
Drum roll.
Yeah. Back in the early 2000s, or actually it was around 2010, S&P and Fitch actually downgraded the federal government from AAA to AA. And the federal agencies also got downgraded at that time, but Moody's still rated the U.S. government AAA. And so we met the 1788 obligation of having at least one federal agency or one rating agency rate federal agencies AAA. Well, with Moody's recent downgrade, and that occurred here in late June, early July, all of the major rating agencies have now dropped the U.S. government to AA1, which means that federal agencies like, you've heard of Fannie Mae, Federal Home Loan Bank, Federal Farm Credit Bank, those federal agencies now follow the federal government's rating, and they're rated AA1. So we do not meet the requirement currently for some of these federal agencies. So what we're asking the board to do is to allow us to change the indenture so that we can invest in federal agencies that are rated the same as the U.S. government. So if the U.S. government's rated AA1, we can invest in federal agencies that are rated AA1. If for whatever reason the federal government got downgraded in the future, we would also be able to invest in federal agencies at that point. It's not tied to a specific credit rating. And the importance of this is that we estimate that if we only could purchase U.S. Treasury bills and U.S. Treasury notes as opposed to federal agency securities in our investments, we could save anywhere between $500,000 to $1 million a year by those additional investments. In other words, the inability to invest in federal agencies could cost the district anywhere from $500,000 to $1 million a year of lost interest income. And so we're asking you to approve this amendment to 1788. It'll take effect when 66 2/3 of the bondholders approve it. And the bondholders will automatically approve it when they purchase our debt in the future. And then also when we refund debt, the bondholders will automatically approve it. So we estimate it's going to be about 4 years or so before we get the bondholder approval for this process. So with that, I'd be happy to talk to you about our proposed amendment to Resolution 1788.
Why we wouldn't want to do this.
I don't know why you wouldn't want to do this, because we are potentially losing additional interest income by not doing it. And so I would like to continue to do what we've done basically since 1972, which is invest in federal agency securities.
The other piece of just red teaming, it's really, the federal government got downgraded by Fitch and Standard & Poor's a long time ago during the financial crisis in 2000. Moody's just downgraded. And so that is important, because from the eye of the rating agency, the US government is less secure, less safe than it was before. Again, just looking at the rating. So the downside is we would be now willing to invest in arguably less safe securities. The counter to that is the universe of securities we have available. Like there aren't any other options here domestically that can offer yield and security that we used to have with a AAA rated security. So technically speaking, we are accepting more risk on the investment side, but from a practical perspective, there aren't any other alternatives that don't cost us significant amount of money on interest.
Yeah, Director Spurgeon.
These two dates in here, can you help me understand how amended last bullet on there, resolution previously amended 2005 and 2011 with effective dates and how do those dates, amendment and effective dates, how do those work?
Yeah, they had to meet the same goal of getting 66 2/3 of the bondholders approving it. And you do that by issuing more debt or refunding debt where the bondholders are automatically approving this amendment as part of purchasing our bonds. And it took basically 4 years in both cases for the amendments to actually spring into action.
Thank you.
You bet.
So we're not going back to existing bondholders with an amendment that they need to approve. It's just over time, it takes care of that.
Yes.
We could, but it's more practical.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, colleagues, last questions. Okay, this is also an action item that we'll have on Thursday. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Chair for the Finance Committee rest.
Great, thank you. We are a little bit ahead of schedule and moved some things around from the agenda, but we are gonna break for lunch. Let's be back at 12:30, please, where we will start with System Management and Nuclear Oversight Committee report. Welcome back, everyone. We are gonna start the afternoon with Director Williams reporting on System Management and Nuclear Oversight.
Great, thank you. Back from lunch, a bit warm in there. So, but back in floor. Yes, the agenda is on screen from our systems pre-meeting, safety briefing for a month. We had an update about AMI. I think we have additional item on that later today, so there'll be a public update on AMI as well. We talked about new generation and transmission, and I believe that is also on the end of the agenda today, so we'll get back to that one. Discussed Nebraska City, SPP policy updates. Those are not action items today, but updates for the systems committee to make sure we're clear on where we are. on those important discussions moving forward. We also discussed an Energy Plaza update. And that is related to an item that is also on our agenda today in a little bit. So I guess I would invite Scott Coach, do you have you want to help us understand what we discussed in systems now?
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to come up. As we've moved out of Energy Plaza, we are now going to be moving our administrative offices to here officially at Blue Cross Blue Shield. One of the things that we wanted to offer in public today, just for awareness and to kind of make it a bit more official, although no board action is required, is we just wanted to acknowledge the intention of changing this address. And after this meeting today, we'll be going through the official motions of getting it changed and asking people to change it with various regulatory authorities and others that might need to know. So our address will be moving to 1919 Exarban Drive here at the Huddle space. The other thing I would offer is that the building itself is up for sale. We are currently entertaining offers. We have good interest, I would say. Several tours have been scheduled. People are walking through it. We're seeing it. We're hoping to have offers kind of solidified by the first part of October. Working with the board, being sure to keep the board informed and engaged as appropriate to evaluate those offers and ultimately come hopefully with a recommendation the very first part of 2020 sale of Energy Plaza.
And so this is just an update item about the address change. There's not an action associated here.
There's no action associated here. Counselor felt it was general counsel felt it was a good idea for us to bring it forward to public domain about the change in address, just so that we would have some record of it having been announced as publicly as it could be in this form.
Great. Any directors have any thoughts, comments, concerns about either the address or Energy Plaza?
Not been accepting customer deposits payments at Energy Plaza for a while. That's correct. I'll refer to Macri.
That changed at the beginning of the year, so that's the customer transition is complete.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Thank you.
Have all the functions that were previously housed there, have they all been moved?
So I would refer to Gina
We
Langle.
have one function that's left to go, so we have found places for everyone else that are here, other locations, and we've gotten those facilities ready. The last one to move over will move relatively soon.
We're utilizing existing OPPD facilities where we had some space and margin to make that move. Use our assets in a more efficient way.
Anybody else? All good on this update? Great.
Thank
Thanks so much, Scott. And sorry, I moved quickly from thank you. I moved quickly from the agenda for the systems committee. We did also discuss a couple other items, including the Natural Resources Committee LR 234. So just an update that was discussed in the systems committee because there is a anticipated hearing coming up there. I think that was the only other thing that we discussed in the systems committee. I think all that information is available for directors. If you have any additional comments, concerns, questions. So that's it on the agenda from the pre-meeting. Covered the administrative office address change. Next, we've got SD6 policy revision. And Gina.
Thank you. This was actually to the board in June. We're going to have our director of safety, training and health come up, Arlo Christensen, just to bring us through this policy revision one more time.
I figured I presented in June, I might as well say it through. So this is the current terminology for ST6. So if you want to go to the next slide, we're in steps 6 through 8. We're have asked for feedback. We didn't get any public comments. Next slide. This is the, well, it's all crossed out there, but I think this
is the red line for it, and then we're proposing
the change, the proposed change to SD6 on your right side there.
And just sorry to clarify, the language update here looks more simplified, but the actual presentation in the monitoring report is anticipated to have more detail than we've seen in the past.
That's correct. we're measuring instead of 2 categories, there's what, about 6 or 8 in there off the top of my head. So we're gonna give you a lot more information.
Just wanted to highlight that because the amount of language in the SD6 new policy seems very, very thin. That is not a reflection on this not being important.
Absolutely.
So the monitoring report will have more detail and it will be more comprehensive. So for anybody who is concerned about the way that this is reflected in the policy itself, we do anticipate more depth and a more comprehensive look at this topic.
Fewer words, more value.
So just to say that the 2 things that we are monitoring now, the PVR and the DART, the vehicle incident rate, and then also the days away and restricted transfer, those are still part of this, and it will encompass also some psychological safety observations, different things in there that will help us with both leading and lagging types of overall health.
It's a more of a mixture of leading and lagging indicators instead of just lagging. So before we was just telling you what our history was. Now we're gonna tell you a little bit of what we're doing impacts our history. So, well, also, if there's any other clarifying questions at this time.
I'll just hop in and say, I was reading this a couple nights ago, the new language, that second sentence, I found it a little bit cumbersome to read through. And so I looked back at some other SDs to see like what kind of language we're using to strive for certain things versus, and I was curious about this one in particular. Is it a strive to goal or is it a particular mark that we're trying to hit? All of that to say, we've exchanged some emails within the last 24 hours with some potentially new language that I'll read. And I'm going to recommend that we use this. OPPD shall strive to achieve 80% or above on the OPPD safety index. It's tighter. For me, it's tighter. It's clear. It uses similar language to what we use in other SDs. So anyway, I just, the consistency and the clarity for me is much, much better than what's up there today. You're the chair of the committee, so I don't want to step on your toes.
That's great. Appreciate
It's
it.
late to the game here. but-
Yeah, this is roughly the last portion of the discussion on the item is, do we want to recommend what had been put out for public comment or additional discussion? We've got additional discussion. It is not a substantive change. It's a clarification of the way in which we will strive to achieve 80% or above. But this was discussed leading up to today, and so it can be reflected before Thursday if we feel that's appropriate. Are there any other comments on the way that language update is reflected or where we go from here to Thursday or to the future? Sound like Director Bogner, you have some thoughts?
Yeah, I know that we've talked a lot about that specific language of OPP shall or strive to. And I think that bringing it in alignment with that is a good recommendation.
And we have positive feedback from the team that this is a good language update.
Yes.
I agree with it. I think it's more of a directive instead of just kind of little laxations either. So.
Right. So we'll anticipate an updated version of that language available for directors before Thursday and then posted, and it will be on the, so it sounds like we will anticipate this to be on the agenda. Was there any additional feedback after this, or we are at the conclusion of it?
Next slide.
Next slide.
Yeah, we kind of jumped around there a little bit.
Just that there was no public comments. We did get some hits on the website, but no questions or comments on this. And I think there's one last slide. I'll turn it back to you.
So thank you for making the public engagement information available. This is a topic we did not anticipate a significant amount of public engagement because it's mostly internal, so no surprise there, but glad that we followed that public comment period. We had resolution, I guess we are at option 1A, which is a modification, and then in anticipation of that new language being moved forward with the same resolution to update. That would be a new attachment to the resolution that we see presented, correct? It's good there. Okay, so that's option 1A is what we anticipate for Thursday. Great. All right, thanks very much. Appreciate it. Next item on the agenda is the Nuclear Oversight Committee quarterly updates.
Tim Ewing coming up, our senior director of the commission, and he'll share with you how well his team continues to execute. It's a very difficult project, and we continue to show up extremely well. We've had some fun with water of late that we can talk about a little bit. But very nice job with the team, and I think he has some good things to share.
Thanks, Troy. Tim Ewing, Senior Director, Fort Calhoun Decommissioning.
We've just got a couple slides here. I do anticipate having some really interesting pictures to show you next time, but for this time, going back to January of 2022 and annually until this most recent one in July 25, and this little collage of overhead pictures. So you can get an idea of how things have progressed over the last 3.5 years. For the July of 25 picture, I called out 2 things. One is the words, demolition of containment is imminent, and you'll see when we get to the next slide. We've even progressed a little farther than you'll see in this picture. But to Troy's point about it being a little wet, you will notice that July picture is awfully green and awfully muddy. It's been a really wet late July and early August for us up there, especially last week when those storms rolled through. We seem to be right in the heart of the rain portion of it. And if you remember last time I was here, I talked about risks to the project and how going forward, weather was going to be one of our bigger risks because almost everything we're doing at this point is now outside. But even with those things, we are really close to starting containment demo. I believe we will start next week. If we could go to the next slide. We'll talk about the picture first. So that is updated from what you saw on the previous page. That temporary structure that was in front of containment to control access in and out, that's been taken down. To the left, you can maybe see a little gray door up there about halfway up containment. There used to be an elevator on the outside that's been taken down. That wall that you see to the right was not part of containment. That was the building that surrounded containment. That's now been taken down. So we are finishing up the last of the prerequisites to start taking down this structure. And before we go to the rest of the milestones, I want to talk about the external reviews that we get. We don't talk about it every time we're here, but I think it's a good reminder that we are still under the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. They're doing all sorts of remote document reviews for us, and they continue to do on-site reviews. That's both of the decommissioning project and of the used fuel organization. Our decommissioning oversight committee, which is a couple of folks that we bring in with decommissioning and regulatory experience, they're going to be on site next week to do their review as well. And they do look at what we've done, but they're more focused on what's coming up. What plans do we have in place for the work that's ahead of us so we can execute it well? And it's not up there, but kind of that middle step is we also have an on-site independent nuclear oversight group that reports through Scott Foch. Last week, they had a group of 4 individuals from decommissioning plants across the country to come in and review our project, our programs, our procedures to make sure that we were set up to be successful once decommissioning was done. This week, we have another person from the industry who's here to review the nuclear oversight process. So we are getting all sorts of good looks this August to make sure that we're continuing to execute this project safely and compliantly. Which does get us back to the milestones. We believe that we will finish containment demolition by the end of this year. That's going to create a lot of material that has to be shipped off. As you recall, those walls are about 3 foot thick in most places. So we expect to have all the material shipped off from this and effectively everything else that's left by spring of next year. So late first quarter, early second quarter. There'll be a few truck shipments after that, but that'll be the end of the rail shipments, which will represent about 99.9% of the material that will move off site. So big milestone coming up spring of next year to have that material removed. And if you look at the next one over, that's the one we talked about. At least for the last couple of years, I've been coming and providing these supports. That's the substantial completion date, and that stays in third quarter of 2026, which keeps us on track for submitting our final paperwork by the end of next year. And when we submit that final paperwork, we will be on track from a budget standpoint as well. That's the end of my report, pending any questions.
Bruce, any additional information? You use the term demolition of containment. That's specific terminology. Can you describe how the demolition will occur? Those vary by locations. Sometimes they are more visible and sometimes less. What are we anticipating?
Yeah, so we will have some interesting visuals for you next time. That's my commitment to you. But generally, the way this works is the same way that it's been done at a couple of other plants. We have 2 individuals working for one of our subcontractors that have done this elsewhere, so bringing in this very unique experience. You start hammering away with the hydraulic hammer around the base of containment. And at a certain point, that will drop down in a controlled fashion and then just continue to chip around the bottom of containment until the top slowly works its way to the ground. And then you think the dome gets demolished after that. But all the hydraulic hammers then picked up with excavators and hauled away. It's a pretty neat process.
Sensitive material will be transported by rail to an appropriate storage facility. So this is not expected to be a rapid demolition event?
The demolition will actually go pretty quick compared to what it looks like, but the processing of the material takes several more weeks after the demolition is.
But not rapid as in seconds, right?
No, not seconds. No, this is a multi-week process.
Sometimes those things show up on the internet.
There's some pretty neat videos on the Facebook, yeah.
Not a detonation-based demolition. Okay, thank you. That's the clarification I was looking for. No need for anybody to run over there and try and look at things.
Oh, that won't happen.
And any comment about contractor performance, your team performance, safety you want to highlight?
You know, generally speaking, been really happy. Of course, my favorite term is pleased but not satisfied. We're always striving for more. And that's one of the reasons that we choose to bring in some external folks to help give us the look that we need, to seek out experts for ideas on how we can continue to perform better. But overall, both from an OPPD employee standpoint and the contractors that we have working for us, dedicated to the project, coming to work every day, just doing the best job they can do.
Not without tension, right? Which you would expect in a contract like this with a job this big. And I think the teams do a nice job of balancing tension with partnerships, and we seem to be able to keep things moving pretty much on time, on budget. So good news story there. But the team is really active in this. Like, they're attached to the hip. They have lots of conversations. They spend a lot of time making sure that everybody knows what the next steps are, what the expectations are, how we're going to do things. Just the execution of the project's just been fantastic.
From an energy solutions perspective, are we expected to complete the contractual relationship with them at the end of 2026? Will they still be around to do more work after that?
So they will still be with us until the license is terminated. I don't expect that anybody will be on site after late third quarter, early fourth quarter of 2026. But until the NRC completes all of their reviews and says your license is released, Energy Solutions will be our partner in accomplishing that effort.
Just curiosity question, how much of the remaining work is OPPD work versus contracted work?
Most of it at this point is contractor work. We're providing a lot of support, a lot of oversight, but the physical demolition, that's all contractor work. The processing materials are contractor work. But there's the big thing that happens after that is radiological surveys. Our people can assist with that. Our people review all that data. So that's where we're really involved at this point.
Yeah, think about it more like project management and task management, oversight, quality control. Although he does have people who continue to oversee the spent fuel that's going to be there for a long time. Sometimes we forget to talk about that, but there's a section there that will have staff there for many, many years to come.
And really great point, Troy. That used fuel organization is all OPPD.
Thank you.
Well, thanks very much for the update. And again, the summary is functionally on schedule and on budget.
Schedule and budget.
Yeah, which is always what we like to hear. So again, appreciate so many of those reports on so many successive quarters, and looking forward to the remaining reports matching that as well. So thanks for all the great work you do.
Thank you.
Great. The next agenda item is anticipated to be an action item, and we have, there we go, abbreviations at the top. So I will let Troy or someone else walk us through the abbreviations so everybody's clear about.
Sarpy County Station, Jones Street Station, 2 generators that need a rewind, and we have Scott Edom, who's going to come up and present that. Kind of walk through the situation. Long story short, these units have been around for a long time. And it's time for an overhaul.
Good afternoon, Scott Edom. I'm the Director of Engineering Services. Just a level set, Sarpy County Station Units 1 and 2 and Jones Street Station Units 1 and 2 are simple cycle combustion turbines. With both the turbine and the generator being originally supplied by General Electric Vernova International LLC or GE. Each unit produces between 54 or 58 megawatts of accredited capacity for OPPD, so a total of 226 megawatts between the 4 units. Sarpy County Station 1 and 2 were placed in service in 1972, and Jones Street Units 1 and 2 in 1973. Aaron, you go maybe back, yeah, right there. So we'll do a quick discussion about the generator itself. So 2 major parts, the stator and the rotor. rotor that rotates. What's in a name? The combustion turbine is what spins that, and the stator remains stationary, and they both work together to generate electricity. Both the stator and the rotor have insulation that is, and other subcomponents that are required to be in good condition to operate reliably and prevent electrical faults. So per GE, the shelf life of this insulation is rated at 30 years, and obviously based upon the dispatch of the unit, that can vary. So again, the last time we re-round the rotors was 34 years ago for Sarpy County 1 and 2, and they are still original equipment for Jones Street 1 and 2, or 52 years. The stator are original for all 4 generators, so 52 to 53 years. So we've definitely exceeded their service life. They are in the same vintage, so we need to refurbish both to meet based upon that service life alone. More frequent starts and operating hours have recent years have increased that need. We have done routine inspections and confirmed. Aaron, if you can go back one slide, those are some actual pictures showing degradation in the yellow and red boxes of degraded conditions within the machines. The team evaluated multiple refurbishment or replacement options to address the issue, and the best solution to mitigate the risks was to rewind both the stator and rotor components using the original manufacturer GE. The district's engineer is certified due to the specialized materials and services required, and as well as the technological complexity of the work that the sealed bidding requirements for the statutes not in the public's interest. We've prepared an engineer certification to document that, and we are requesting the board's approval to move forward with negotiations with GE for a contract or contracts for both materials and services for the rewind and refurbishment of both Sarpy County 1 and 2 and Jones Street 1 and 2 generators. So pending questions, that's what I have.
With a rewind, and they increase its megawatts by a few.
Nope, that's just to ensure that it operates reliably at its current rating.
Would you repeat the megawatt total, please?
Yes, so between the 4 units, they range between 54 and 58 megawatts each for a total of approximately 226 megawatts. We do testing, and so that changes, but they're around 55 megawatts nominally output.
Rewind on that heard before. What is that?
Yeah, so they'll take out the portions and reapply the insulation to make sure that, just like your insulation on an electrical cord, it's much bigger scale than that, but that keeps the electrical components separate. So they're basically going to take it out and clean it up and apply new insulation to make sure there are electrical contacts. There may be, depending on damage, and that's why it's refurbish and replace, but it's we do have to get some long lead components that are hard, but the insulation, if that breaks down, that's where you have the interaction that can cause electrical faults.
Anticipate other surprises once you get in there, or is that just kind of a given the age of the equipment?
So we are, based upon the long lead of some of these components, we need to start this fall to start the first unit next fall. We think we have a pretty good idea of what those components are, but we will try to plan for contingencies as much as we can.
Usually you find a few
Yeah.
stragglers that you couldn't foresee until you take it apart.
So to that point, we have done work like this on other units in the past.
Yes, we've done Sarpy County 4 and 5 recently. They're a different manufacturer, but similar scope.
And you talked about timelines. Start now, first unit next fall. Are they scheduled every 6 months, every year? How long until our work there?
Yeah, we are planning for the first unit to be the fall of 26. And then we'll work in the rest. Spring of 27 will be the next one. And then further out, we're still resolving when, but yeah, we want to address them as quickly as we can, work it into the normal outage rotation based upon other resources.
Yeah. So planned outages rather than waiting.
Correct.
Getting to an unplanned outage. Okay, great. Glad to hear that. Anybody else, any additional technical questions? Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, last point, the mechanism, I just always want to clarify, the mechanism here is negotiation with an engineer cert. So just to be clear that is the type of authority that is being recommended for us to grant. So from here forward, Are there additional contracts for anything else, or this is one contract for all parts and labor for all 4 units from here to the end?
This would be the one permission for all 4 units, parts and labor to GE specifically. Yes.
All right, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next, RFP 6196, and tell us who's going to introduce this.
This is Shane Hansen. He's our Director of Engineering on the transmission and distribution side of the organization, while Scott obviously has generation. And he's got a pretty nice contract to share. Had some really good outcomes from this, and so he'll walk through that.
Awesome. Thanks, Troy. Casa Sarpy Transmission Project. I've been fortunate to be up here and talked with all of you several times about this. So we are looking to award the construction contract for the construction services to build this new 345 kV transmission line from our Cass County station just outside of Plattsmouth to the new Turtle Creek station there in Sarpy County near the old Sarpy County landfill. This will include rebuilding approximately 10 miles of aging 69 kV infrastructure. So when we went through the routing process, we did route this new 345 line that would allow us that opportunity to rebuild some aging infrastructure there. So ultimately, all the construction services from foundations to structure erection, stringing of wire, and the removal of existing equipment will be under this contract. We did receive 9 proposals, which was a very good outcome for an RFP of this classification. Several of those proposals were considered legally and technically responsive for us to consider. Ultimately, the engineer's estimate for this project was $46 million, and we did evaluate the proposal from Brink Constructors Inc. to be both legally and technically responsive and evaluated as the lowest and best bid, which is approximately $26.69 million, as well as the construction. I just want to mention that this line is scheduled to be in service end of year 2026. So part of that technical evaluation is contractors confirming that they can meet those tentative in-service dates that we have asked for. So based on that legal and technical review, we are asking for the board of directors to consider Brink for this contract. Any questions?
You mentioned specifically the contract being detailed about the in-service date.
Yep.
Does the contract also have provisions in the event that is not accomplished?
Yeah, so we do have performance and payment bonds that are included in there, and since they are specifically written, we do have some of those language that we can, hold our contractors accountable to. When we evaluate the lowest and best bid, Brink Constructors, as an example, was our transmission partner during all of our Power with Purpose transmission construction that we just successfully completed. So we do have a contractor that has a known track record of completing on time and large complex projects for us.
Great. Directors, any additional comments, questions?
Yeah. Go ahead, Mike.
I think I'm reading, you maybe address this, but the lowest bidder appeared to be legally and technically responsible. Did I miss something as far as why they were choosing?
Yeah, so as we went through the technical evaluation of the bidders themselves, we do have a pretty robust evaluation criteria that we do include in the RFP. So things that I mentioned as, references for similar projects that they've done, safety records, adherence to schedule. Price is obviously a very big component, but we did have to, once we took into all of those grading rubrics that are included in the RFP. So every bidder, when they filled out this RFP, they knew what those the different things they would be graded against. So that's what brought Brinks, and we really leaned into that lowest and best for those reasons.
Yep. Yeah, good question, Mike. I was looking at the second page, the table that shows the rankings.
Yep.
I miss a lot, and I would imagine that perhaps I missed this, but I assume we've been doing a version of this before. I've never seen a table laid out in this way.
Yeah, so I would say this is a definite continuous improvement item that the team has been tangibly looking for. We've had less than stellar performance of some contractors, not just in energy delivery space, but across the district. So we've been coupling and working with supply chain as a means to how do we really lean into this lowest and best to make sure that we are getting quality product from qualified contractors at a reasonable cost to the district as well.
That's great. I appreciate you sharing that. It's super.
So the engineer's estimate's 46 and this is 26. That always makes me a little concerned that maybe they didn't understand the project.
Yeah.
I guess help me be comfortable with this discrepancy.
Yeah, so two things I'll point out here, we had several low bidders in that 26 million. And then I would say all but one of the bids came in below the 46 million. And there were a few things that were working to our advantage. Previously, I'd come and talked about our TASCA, Transmission and Substation Contractor Alliance. It was very fortunate timing for us that we had that on the street at the same time that we have this contract out for award. So we have a lot of vendors that are actively engaged and very interested in being our partners. So a lot of the proposals that we received really showed that, that they even explained that we really want to showcase to you how we could be a great partner for OPPD on a much larger scope of work. So I think that really led to the very aggressive proposals and the quantity of proposals that we've seen. And 9 is a large number compared to what we've had in recent years. The other thing that we did have to, kind of come to realization, we haven't built lines of this length. So really we're still equating some of our estimates on maybe some of our more complex projects that we've done that have been more urban versus this is back to a rural construction. So it's again where TASC is going to allow us to do better pre-planning for these, where contractors can actually help us identify risks earlier in the process. So we, in our estimates, we're maybe still including too many risks, if that makes sense, for where we're at.
Construction complexities that won't exist in this environment.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you, Shane.
Yep.
This is just a note of gratitude to the board. You approved that engineer certificate for the Alliance contract in June. And it's that trust that you placed in us that helped us achieve some of these savings, which is great.
And I think it's important to note the reason this is not included in TASCA was a time frame perspective. We need construction on this new cast to Sarpy line. It's a very critical line for OPPD and for all the plans that we have for future growth. So we could not wait to get through the TASCA and able to have those alliance contractors set up, because construction will start in earnest here in late September, beginning of October.
Is this the notice to construct that we talked about earlier? Is this the line associated with the SPP notice to construct?
This is a line associated with an SPP notice to construct many years ago. The one that we talked about earlier, it's a different, but it's a similar process.
Yeah.
You're referring to JTIQ.
JTIQ.
This is not.
that yet.
Yeah, we signed this notice to construct back in 2022.
And for clarity on JTIQ, think about like the eastern side of Nebraska down towards Missouri.
Any additional comments, questions? Seems like we're in pretty good shape. Great, appreciate it. Glad we got a good bid. Director Ford, appreciate taking a note that we should discuss this for the agenda at the end of today, please.
Yes, absolutely.
And next item, AMI program update. Give me a little time for someone to walk all the way up to the front. And go.
All right, good afternoon, Aaron Smith, Director of Distributed Device Strategy and our program sponsor for our AMI efforts. So good afternoon, everyone. Glad to be back again for our quarterly update on our AMI program. I have some really exciting updates to share with you all. We've completed some really big milestones recently. We have some upcoming, really excited about to share. We'll talk also a little bit about some of the employee road shows. Talk again about those kind of upcoming milestones, and then we'll dig into a little bit of our customer outreach and education efforts, and talk about some of the community leader meetings that we held back in July, and kind of share some updates with you on that. So if we can go ahead and go to the next slide. So this is our program schedule. So in terms of the dates, nothing has changed here. The great news and the thing that's changed is you'll see a lot of green check marks here on the left side. So a lot of great progress and milestones that we've that we've checked off. We had our first big program release back in June, which was our new meter data management system, which went live along with the integration to our CC&B system, or our customer care and billing. And so what this means is that all of our meter data, whether our existing AMR meters or the new AMI meters, now all flows through the meter data management system and then over to our customer care and billing for the billing process. So what that allows us to do as we go and change out meters, it's a plug and play, and the data is coming from the same source, and the billing then works flawlessly. So really, really big step back in June. I'll highlight a few more things about that in just a moment. Also this summer, we've deployed our tablets to our field crews. This is in advance of our new outage management system that's going to go live in September, and also our new field service that'll go live later this year in November. So the crews have their tablets, have been going through training on those and on the new systems that they're going to be using. So that's a really big step this summer. And then also in July, we went live with our new geographic information system, and that's now our official system of record for our distribution system model. So also a really, really big step as we go into the fall. And then you'll notice kind of a marker for today. We started last week and started deploying our field area network devices across the metropolitan area for our areas that are going to be in the soft launch pilot where we're deploying meters. So to date, we've installed 34 devices, 22 gateways, and 12 routers across the metro area. So we're about 2/3 the way done with that in about a week and a half. So really, really good progress on that. We actually have our first meter out in the field that is a mesh network meter, and it's out there, it's communicating, working really well. We've also deployed about a dozen meters of the cellular type at some OPPD facilities and also some OPPD employee homes. And those are all communicating, the billing's working flawlessly, everything's going really well. So it's kind of an extension of our meter lab out into the field. That's all really working really, really well. So great steps this summer. And then we'll talk in a little bit later about kind of where we're going in the fall. But as you can see, those are kind of our big milestones that will start in the fall, including our soft launch in October. You can go to the next one, please. So just kind of looking at some of the highlights, and there's a lot of numbers on here to kind of give you an idea of the scale. There's a couple I want to highlight. One on our meter data management, the conversion of 421,000 different customer records over to that new meter data management system. Really, really big step. Lots of participants, both internal OPPD and our external partners that helped us. Lots of work went into that. We're in the hypercare phase, which really means we're kind of monitoring the system daily, 24/7, making sure everything's going really well. It is, which is excellent. Any little things that have popped up, we handle very quickly. But that's been a very calm hypercare, which is the best case scenario. It's been very, very good. On the right-hand side, the new GIS system, geographic information system, 1.2 million assets that we've migrated over to that new system, along with 20,000 miles of conductor. So really, really big scope of type of assets that we moved over. Again, also in hypercare, that's going very, very, very smooth. So great job by all the teams, both internal and our partners that worked on these efforts for multiple years leading up to this summer. If you go to the next slide, please. So I want to talk a little bit about the employee roadshows, and I know we've had a couple of members of the board of directors that were able to attend those. And what this was is a chance for our employees to really kind of see and feel and really kind of see demonstrations of the technologies to really understand what's coming, what's changing, and really just understand the scope of what we're doing and really how large this is. A lot of utilities may tackle one or two systems, as you can see, we're tackling. And it's gone really well. We've gotten a lot of great positive feedback from these sessions. So I think this has really been a great thing and maybe a model for other projects and programs at OPPD in the future for something to kind of showcase what we're doing so that everyone kind of knows where we're heading and knows what to expect as we go into all these go live. So really good positive internal roadshows this summer. You'll go to the next one here. So look at what's to come. So as I mentioned, the field area network deployment, that will wrap this month here in August. And then early September, kind of the week right after the holiday, we're going to be going live with the new outage management system, new customer platform, which will include the My OPPD and the new external outage map, as well as our integrations with customer care and billing. So that's a really, really big step. This is the one where our customers are going to feel and be able to experience AMI and these new technology upgrades. To the new outage map, right? You don't have to have a new AMI meter yet to experience the new outage map. You don't have to have an AMI meter to experience some of the functionality of the new customer portal. Would go in, log in, pay your bill. If you buy or sell a house or move out an apartment, you can do a start-stop service from within that. So a lot of great stuff coming to all customers here in just a couple weeks. And then in October, we'll begin our soft launch meter deployment, October through January. And then wrapping up the year, we'll roll out our enterprise asset system. That's the IBM Maximo, as well as the new field service management.
So, sorry, can I just step in?
Yeah, absolutely.
I know there was some recent communication in response to media questions about the outage map, which we had talked about previously, but in those communications, I did not notice a specific date previously presented. So is this the official announcement of the breaking news on the timeline for the go live on the outage map?
This is our timeline, assuming everything goes well with the technology and there's no hiccups. That's the plan is the September 8th date is what we're planning on, assuming no hiccups with the technology. That's our target date.
Great. And a lot of these decisions, part of it is it took work and time, but we also didn't want to roll out a new outage map in the middle of July when we know traditionally we have outages, et cetera. And so we consciously waited until after the heavy storm season. I may be jinxing this, but having these rolled out in September was an intentional decision.
And to caveat that too, to add on, we do have a couple of backup dates in September, assuming if we would get storms, we're not going to cut this technology over in the middle of a big event or anything like that. So again, if it ends up pushing a little bit due to weather, that could happen, but it'll be sooner than later, but there could be some shifts in there. So again, the dates are subject to change due to factors like weather and other complications, but in general, it's coming very soon.
Appreciate the clarification. Yeah, and the outreach we did proactively about this neutral becoming available. I'm really looking forward to having people be able to see that.
Can I add? I want to add. Nope. I'm so excited. That slide gives you just like this nice little picture of all that's happening. The massive work behind what's pictured up there, and Aaron, and I'm going to call it David Wisenan, Aaron Smith and David Wisenan. This is so big. You can't grasp it from the pictures. They're cool. They're wonderful. The slide's great. But the massive amount of work leading this, and then all the people that have to coordinate under this because those systems are all so hyper connected to each other. You got to lift it up at once and it's got to work. And all the testing and all the quality assurance that needs to go into that, it's huge. So I just want to kind of, Eric, you were talking about that, but I just really want to I just want to double down on that because it is so big what is sitting up on that screen right now. And it's so exciting. I mean, that's the other thing. It's big, it's exciting, it will change so much of what we have here by the very nature of what this technology and the capabilities represent. So thank you for letting me jump in.
Thank you. We can progress to the next one, please. So now I want to talk a little bit about our outreach efforts. So I mentioned in July, we held meetings with our community leaders that are in or near these pilot areas. And through those efforts, we connected with about 175 different leaders through our various outreach channels and efforts. And we had 30 leaders, including elected officials and community leaders, attend either our in-person or virtual events. And we got a lot of great feedback. There was a lot of appreciation for the fact that we were holding the events and communicating what we were doing. There seemed to be a lot of excitement from the leaders in the areas about what this technology was going to mean, the information that our customers were going to be able to have about their energy use and what that was going to allow them to do in making decisions on how they use energy. So really, really positive momentum coming out of those sessions, which was great to see. And we also have a recording out there available of those sessions for other community leaders that weren't able to make it as well, and PDF copies of the presentations available as well. We also had we've mentioned in the past, I know Matt, who unfortunately wasn't able to be here today, mentioned we have kind of a 30, 60, 90 plan. So kind of our 90-day communications have gone out to over half of the pilot areas now. And that's kind of just highlighting, hey, this new exciting technology is coming. This is kind of what it's going to mean. As we dig in to the next one's kind of on that 60-day communication, it gets a little more granular, talking a little bit more about kind of the OPPD tools that we'll have and kind of what to expect. There'll be a very short duration outage. Allegiant is our vendor that will be doing the actual installations for residential and specifying things like making sure we have a clear path to the meter and we can access it. And then kind of the 30-day one, we'll share a little bit more of the logistics and then talk kind of about the excitement of kind of the new tools and technology. So those communications, like I said, have gone out to customers in the first few groups that we're going to be deploying. So really, really great stuff there in terms of building that excitement for our customers that are going to be in these pilot areas. If you can advance to the next one, highlighting a little bit here on the OPPD portal. Again, this will replace our existing My account that we have. And again, this is for all customers, and all customers will be receiving communication about this. The ability to go in, view your bill, pay your bill, do a start-stop service, and also being able to receive messaging. All customers will be able to sign up for the outage alerts via text, email, or whatever channel you would prefer. That will link again to the same type of information we'll display on the outage map, where it's going to be kind of a very modern look and feel on that outage map. You can also report an outage from the outage map, and then we'll also have, not in the September release, but in the November release, the ability to report streetlight outages as well with kind of a geolocation. So if you're standing by the streetlight, you can know, yep, this is the exact street light, which will help the process all the way around, because right now sometimes we'll get a call or an email or something. Oh, it's the fifth one down on the left side of the street. And, sometimes depending on, well, what's the left side, right? And so this will really help in kind of locating those street lights when you do need to go out and make a repair to those. So really exciting stuff to come. And again, this is for all customers. And then as customers get their AMI meter, they'll be able to go in and look at on the prior day that usage down to a 15 level from the new data from the AMI meters.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's something specific there. The OPPD Connect app, which I just pulled up here, are we going to be migrating, encouraging everybody from the OPPD Connect? Because it sounds like all the services from my OPPD are the same ones that are currently listed in the other app. So that will.
Yes. So there'll be a migration period where initially it'll direct you to the mobile optimized web version of my OPPD. Ultimately in January, when we release the official app, like out on the app stores, you'll be able to download that app, and then that will replace the existing app as well. So there'll be a period in there where we just have the mobile optimized web, a short period of a couple months, and then ultimately we replace with the app.
Great. Appreciate it.
But yeah, we will have a redirect on there for folks to sign up.
For the web version, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that most of our customers, knowing that they only think about electricity for 2 years, that's the right number. Like they're not probably on the website actively. Talk to me a little bit about, for those that are only going out to, what's going to be required of them in order to make the transition? Is it going to be seamless? Will it require them to get in and make changes in order to make that effective? What's the transition look like?
Yeah, so if you have an existing My account, you'll be able to transition that over. I think you'll have to kind of go in and change your password and kind of update your account. If you don't, you'll be able to sign up. There's also certain features you can do, like you don't need an account to report an outage or to view the outage map. Now, to pay your bill or do things with an account, obviously you need to log in to do those secure type things for security reasons. But there's several things you can do without actually logging in itself in terms of kind of outage or reporting things or looking at the status of an outage.
So I'm just curious about the friction. So the friction in going from existing to the new is maybe a password reset is kind of what you described?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, great.
Yep. Yeah, we want to make it as smooth and easy as possible. All right, so that's my OPPD. So we're super excited about that. And then this kind of look at our timelines. So we've had the community leader meetings, but we have coming up for all of our customers and community leaders and kind of open events. We'll have 10 in-person events and also 4 virtual events, either in or near the pilot areas. And these are going to be at kind of public locations where people frequent anyway. Think of things like Bellevue Public Library or the Kroc Center or the City Hall, like in the city of Peru, or places like that where it's kind of a low-cost venue and a public common place that people are used to going. So those are the type of events that we'll have. For each of you Board of Directors members, you'll be getting kind of a notification and a schedule for ones that are scheduled within your districts. If you would like to attend those, you'll have those list of those events and when they're taking place as well. And so as part of the communications that we're sending out, customers will be notified when these events are in those areas. Again, open to all to attend, and then also the virtual options as well. And again, this is supplementary to our kind of 30, 60, 90. So kind of for those that really want to engage or have a lot of questions, we want to provide a forum for them to come and talk to our subject matter experts about the technology, about what it means for those that have questions or concerns or anything that they'd like to share with us. We want to provide that avenue for them. And then again, as I mentioned, the marketing campaign for the My OPPD will begin early September to all customers. So that's kind of a snapshot of where we're at in terms of our public outreach and engagement for AMI. And so we're very, very excited. So then the next quarterly update, when I come back in November, we'll have completed a good number of these. We'll have about half of our soft launch meters deployed at that point. We'll have, new OMS live, new outage maps. So lots of really exciting stuff coming here in the next couple of months. So we've been talking about this for a couple of years, and now we're here at the really exciting good stuff.
At the risk of being repetitive, this is truly what transformational looks like. It's massive, right? A lot of work here. It's something that we dreamed about. I remember when I joined OPPD 8 years ago, we were talking about some of this functionality, and it was just a dream. And 4 years ago, I asked the team, let's go. And I'm super proud of where the team is today. It is literally transforming the way we interact with customers and modernizing us the way we.
And I think I've been to the presentation. We're installing the 2nd generation of advanced meters.
Correct.
I think is what I heard. And 80% of the country already has some version of advanced.
I think the
meters.
technical term is leapfrogging.
Leapfrogging.
We're going to that 2.0.
There's a difference between having the meters and having all the infrastructure that allows you to utilize it in several different ways. So I just want to call that out. Some utilities will just put the infrastructure in to be able to turn on and off and read.
Did you say the iPads have been deployed in the field? Or
Yeah, so the tablets, it's like a ruggedized tablet. So it's not exactly an iPad, but it's a ruggedized version of a tablet. And our field crews have those. And
how's it going?
Going through their training. Really good so far. Good comments for those that have gotten in there and gotten a chance to use those. So they're excited about those. Lots of good comments on the ability to see the maps and kind of see where they're at, driving locations again. So I think some of it'll take, again, some getting used to the changes of it, but I think overall, positive comments so far.
I'll tell you a quick anecdote. I was speaking with one of our linemen who was testing that tablet here. And he was telling me how excited he was because he no longer has to enter and input keys. And he said, if this thing can read and interpret my handwriting, we're gold. Because you just read and you write however you want it, and the software interprets that and puts it in. Right? So he was at least that one interaction, he was very, very.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Yeah, it's exciting stuff. Always glad to hear the updates. We're seeing it roll out live for all of our people in our service territory. And with that, I think that's the end of the systems committee agenda. So back to you, Chair Core.
Thank you. All right, so we're on to confirming our agenda for Thursday. Eric, you want RFP 6196 pulled off there?
Yes, please.
So
I'm just, yeah, for clarification, my day job has me involved in other public infrastructure in the area, so I anticipate not voting on that item for an abundance of caution about potential between organizations.
certainly. Thank you for that. So Aaron, let's pull 11 off, 13 and 14, and then do any other directors have anything else they want removed from the consent agenda? Okay. And then I'm going to go to Mr. Foch for the review of the board work plan, please.
Yes, I just wanted to highlight, one of the things you don't see on the work plan is the amount of work that's been actually completed. In 2025, there were 9 items that were completed over the past year. I just wanted to highlight that, and they will be focused on a little bit during the governance workshop next week. There are 4 items that are currently on track. I'll bring your attention to the third one, review and recommend policy changes to GP 14 board expense reimbursement. That has been in discussion with the risk committee, and we would anticipate bringing it forward in September for approval. The next item is review SD6 safety. Well, that happens today, so that will be on this list that has been accomplished. There are a few items that are on hold. A discussion around SD11. That will likely come up again during the board workshop, just based upon some of the feedback. So I wanted to highlight that. SD2 rates, there's some conversation that should be part of the overall rate design project. And that was a recent conversation that was held in finance committee to confirm that was going to be the approach. And then develop strategic education and training. That will also be part of the board workshop discussion, in fact, part of the focus on it. There are 4 items that are on hold. One is piloting a GP and BL monitoring process. That's been an ongoing conversation in the workshop. I will highlight that Eric and Bill do anticipate bringing that up again as part of the workshop in August. And then the second item, we had talked about reviewing and refining the board policy development refinement process. There has not been a policy yet this year that has required really that to happen. So I mean, it's not started because it hasn't needed to start yet. That will happen as soon as it can. The next item is the board corporate secretary relationship. Hopefully by the end of the year, we'll have some real clarity, given some moving parts to create clarity of process there, or policy rather. And then finally, there was a discussion around BL10 delegation to the president and chief executive officer regarding real and personal property. And at some point in the near future, we'll be scheduling a conversation, if it surfaces through the board workshop, to just have a clarifying conversation around that policy. So I think that accounts for all the items on the planet.
Great, thank you very much. With that, we'll hop to Mr. Vi and Mr. Underwood for generation and transmission update.
We have a few individuals coming up. I think Danny Belt's gonna come discuss the new generation and transmission. That's Guy Edom on North Omaha. We have a few things going on as an organization, so we'll spend a little time talking about that.
All right, thank you, Troy. As Troy said, Danny Belt, Senior Director, Major Projects for OPPD. It's my privilege to be able to talk a little bit about the new generation and transmission projects that we'll be working on over the course of the next few years. I also have my colleagues talking a little bit more about the North Omaha transition and then renewables and storage, as Joe comes up there to close out. On the new generation site, it seems like with the amount of work that's going on and the volume of activities, one slide on all this generation work isn't quite doing justice. Trying to be brief, trying to paint a picture of a project, a significant project in motion. Feel free to ask questions. On this new generation side, really looking at two main projects: the Cass County expansion as well as the Turtle Creek expansion. From the Cass County side, you can see some photos there showing activities that started back in April of this year. So we've been working on that project for quite a few months now in active construction. Since that time, really heavy civil work, moving dirt around on site, preparing new entrance road to the facility, working on different storage areas for laydown yards and that sort of thing. Kind of a key win for OPPD. I'll get to a little bit more detail here in a minute, but some of the more significant activities for foundations couldn't really start until we actually get an air permit. So I can also report that in July, we did start a lot of those activities related to foundations and pile foundations underneath large equipment. Started excavation for the power block area. Started laying a lot of the trenching needed for utility piping and as well as for duct banks. So significant amount of activity underway. They got temp power installed for their office complex and really mobilizing a lot of folks on site. Overall, the Cass County project, if you look at kind of the earned value coming from our EPC supplier, we're about at the 7% mark, about 30% through the engineering effort. One of the reasons why, I kind of call out that 30% complete on the engineering is really to highlight, one of those key wins on 3,600 submittals that we processed since we awarded this contract. It's an immense amount of work for our engineering teams to process and between OPPD resources as well as our strategic partner in Burns and Mac. It's keeping a lot of folks busy trying to consume that kind of document flow and making sure that we're not slowing the EPC supplier down. There's about 80 craft or so that are on site at Cass County. So we're building the resource pool. I think we'll be at 120 by the end of August. On the Turtle Creek front, we did start construction in July. The excavation in the power block area had to get that site ready for starting those activities. A lot of the stormwater pollution prevention plans. So think about best management practice type, erosion type controls being placed on site. A lot of the handoff coming from our previous contractor to our new one regarding the SWIP permitting. In that case, we had a few less folks on site, only maybe 11 or so heavy equipment operators. But again, starting to gear up on the Turtle Creek side as well, getting the grading and office areas and stuff prepped, ready to go for that. When I talked a little bit about key wins, one of the key ones for us is really that air permit. We have since the very beginning of the concept phases of this project, air permits were always going to be our critical path, and I can say with a lot of recognition to our environmental team and the work that they did to keep those activities moving. We're able to accomplish that air permits about 5 weeks ahead of schedule. 5 weeks in a 3-year project might not sound like a very long period of time, but for this particular project, it made all the difference in the world for at least the dual fuel conversion portion of that project. So 5 weeks is really about all the flow that we have built into those schedules. So it's something we've been monitoring, but a key success and a key win for OPPD. We really got no challenges, no feedback coming through the air permitting process. So great work on our modeling and some of the preliminary work that we were doing with the NDEE and making sure that the overall project was well understood. A couple of other key wins. We will start seeing some major equipment show up on site towards the end of this year. We've got the turbine for the Turtle Creek site, as well as the generator for the Turtle Creek site, both expected to be on site in the September-October timeframe. The spare GSU at Cass County is supposed to deliver by the end of the year. So a lot of the work that Hewitt's doing there is getting ready for those major equipment deliveries, making sure we're able to receive those and keep them in a safe spot. Wanted to talk just a little bit about some key learnings. Probably one of the biggest ones, not really on the slide, but really around the supply chain challenges. Wanted to just talk to that just a little bit more to say that, you know, even though we're in a good spot on this project, it's not without some continuous reminders that supply chain is still a challenge in our industry. A couple of recent items to share in that regard is just the procurement cycles it's taken Hewitt to be able to fully build out all of their procurement packages. It's taken them quite a bit longer to negotiate all of those rates with the different suppliers, all the different terms in those agreements with those suppliers. Not to the point that it's causing any issues with our schedule, but when you start to add a couple, 2, 3, 4 weeks more negotiation requirements to be able to get us to a point where we have the procurement packages, signed and sealed with the vendors. It adds, additional concerns and stuff for the overall project. Just there's that much demand going in the industry and that much pressure. It's really a supplier's market and something that we're monitoring really closely. We're still seeing the impacts of tariffs. We just got some word today that we're going to probably see some tariff impacts on our generation step-up transformers, or GSUs as we like to call them, and that could be fairly significant when you consider the 8 or so very expensive GSUs that we're procuring for these couple of sites. So again, something we're monitoring and trying to keep in close contact with our financial services team and making sure they're aware of any of these potential impacts as they arise. But we're just really hoping for some stability in that tariff market to make sure that we don't have any other later delivered equipment with those kind of challenges.
So GSUs are coming from where?
Ulsan, South Korea. So Hyundai is the manufacturer for us. Maybe the last thing I'll touch on in the supply chain market, we had the good fortune to be able to host a peer utility at our facility at Turtle Creek on Wednesday of last week. I had some great interactions. They're on a very similar journey to us, large data center growth in their service territory, large other growth that's happening, looking to increase their generation fleet. Wanted to learn a little bit more about what we're doing at our Turtle Creek site in particular. We're knowing that we have Turtle Creek 1 and 2 in place and ready to go. They have a similar F-class unit, a simple cycle unit that they're putting into one of their locations. One of the unique challenges that they had is really securing an EPC supplier to be able to build that simple cycle turbine. As I mentioned, this is it's a supplier's market. It's a vendor's market in this space. And so suppliers, the EPC suppliers that they were looking at have basically told them your project's not appealing enough to us. Paraphrasing a bit, but basically a single simple cycle turbine is just not the type of project we want to take on, considering all the other work that's happening in the industry. So maybe a key takeaway for OPPD on that is maybe some recognition of the good decisions that we made early. Really trying to bundle these projects together and make them as appealing as possible. Looking to leverage some good tier 1 alliance contracts with key suppliers like a Kiewit. Making sure that we are maintaining and strengthening relationships wherever we can. This other utility, they're really looking at alternate execution options at this point, kind of moving away from the EPC style that the industry is used to, more to a design bid build, where they're actually going to be hiring a separate engineering firm to do the design, and they're going to act as a general for all the build out of that simple cycle turbine. So a lot of great recognition for the work that this team has done, OPPD and our board working through and making sure that we're staying on the head of the curve when it comes to building these facilities, making sure that we have suppliers available. Any questions on that before I transition? All right, very good. Let's go ahead and jump. So on the Turtle Creek site, just a really quick update. It was a significant journey from essentially 2019 timeframe when we first conceived and approved that project until now. Turtle Creek 1 and 2 went commercial operations on June 17th of this year. It seems to be a very popular couple of units in the market. So we've seen 41 commitments so far in the 45 days of online operation through July 31st. So some great operation in the market. Contractor has demobilized the site, working on a few things around punch list items. So we'll have to get the contractor back to just clean up a few things, and that's kind of some key activities going on that site. For Standing Bear, really just kind of working through some few remaining issues, looking to try to get that online by the end of the summer. Go ahead and progress to the next slide, Aaron. On the transmission substation front, we got to be able to interconnect all these new generation assets. Again, kind of hard to depict the entire portfolio of work that's happening on the transmission and substation side. So maybe first call your attention to some of the boxes on the right. 7 projects that are in that scoping phase and initiation phase. 7 that are in the engineering and right-of-way procurement phase. So a total of 14 active projects accounting for 184 miles of transmission. You have heard us talk in the past about, kind of the upward trend. This is less than half of the amount of transmission that we're going to see over the course of the next 5 to 10 years. These are just the projects that we have in motion. For today, I'm just going to.
Danny, for context, how many miles of transmission did we build in the past decade?
In the past decade, we built a little over 100 miles.
It was 10 years, right? And we just now in 7 projects, 184 miles.
Yep.
And we have about the same size.
It'll be probably around 400 total of projects we know.
Absolutely. It's a monumental effort, that's coming our way. We're up for the challenge so the couple of projects I'm going to talk to you today and obviously be building in more narrative around other projects as they become a little bit more mature. But 2 of the main ones that you see that are pretty active, getting close to construction phase, are going to be the Cass to Sarpy transmission and the North Douglas County transmission. You heard Shane talking about the construction component of the Cass to Sarpy T line. So that project is making its way through all the the engineering procurement cycles, really getting into the construction phase of that work, progressing very well. On the North Douglas County transmission side, we're really kind of just at the start of our procurement phase. We do have that North Douglas County transmission project as part of PASCA. You've heard us talk about that a couple times already this afternoon. The Transmission and Substation Contract Alliance. That particular contract is out for bid. I'll be talking about that in just a little bit more, or just another slide or two. Maybe a few key wins to touch on for these couple of projects. Again, some great work by our environmental team getting some of the key environmental permits completed in an expedited fashion. We see the one for Cass to Sarpy getting that Corps of Engineer permit in about 10 days was a pretty phenomenal, shortening of a traditional cycle that's usually quite a bit longer than that. We do have distribution already in construction on the Cass to Sarpy transmission side, so another good win for us getting that started before we start a lot of the transmission work. Make sure our distribution's out of the way and limit some of the risk that we have during the construction phase. It sounds like we talked already a little bit today about GHEIQ. I got that noted on there, just that we accepted the NTCs. So we do have a lot of folks already starting to work on that project in earnest. We've been working for quite a few months, understanding the grant process, but now it's the more detailed scoping, a lot of interface with our neighboring utilities, because we have pretty much every direction we're going to be tying in somewhere with those couple of projects into our adjacent utilities. And then one of the key wins on the North Douglas County project, just in order to keep pace with some of the customers that we have in that area, continue to ask, can we get this done a little bit sooner? We want to grow load. We were able to accelerate that overall project schedule by about 6 months, and really what that means to OPPD is in that 27 timeframe. We got the opportunity for some accelerated revenues and stuff off of the load from these couple of projects. One of the things to maybe call out, you see a few color bubbles on there, just trying to better articulate maybe just a feel of where the projects are. You notice from a schedule standpoint, we're showing green in that space. From an overall budget standpoint, still showing that yellow. It doesn't necessarily mean our projects are over budget, but we're continuing to monitor that supply chain market that I just mentioned to you a little bit ago, where we still have the potential for tariffs really kind of picking up on a few suppliers that we use overseas. I think we're good there. Aaron, if you want to move on to the next.
Yeah, sorry, hold on. You said something I wanna make sure I understand. I think you said, I'll pick on North Douglas in particular because I think I heard this at the open house, but the existence of this line being in service also equals greater opportunity for more revenue. How does that, like, educate me here? I want to make sure I understand how that.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Director Moody. So basically what's happening is that there's a load restriction on the transmission and substation assets that are in that region. So until we get all of the transmission and substations upgraded to handle the additional load, we can't allow the customer to expand their load.
And without getting into details, we're talking about a large single customer that we're telling them
can't serve you
above this level because of this constraint. As soon as we have that constraint lifted, they're ready to go. And we've already made a lot of investments on the generation side, on the substation side. So that's really the revenue flowing in at a higher level.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for the question. Aaron, I think we're good to go to the next slide. As part of our commitment to the board back in June, we actually approved the engineering certificate through resolution 6709. We wanted to come back to you every quarter and provide you an update of how we potentially leveraged that engineer certificate. So I wanted to highlight two things for you today. The first one being on the North Douglas County transmission project. And this kind of again speaks to the supply chain concerns we continue to monitor. But we have, let's say, an alliance contract with a particular vendor for our transmission wire. What ended up happening at the time we were ready to cut the order for this North Douglas County transmission project, they had just an extremely large order that was put in the queue right before us. And as you can see, it jumped their lead times from 30 weeks to 92 weeks. So 92 weeks is almost more than what we have left remaining on that project schedule, and that wouldn't have worked for us, right? So just wanted to highlight what our teams were able to do is look at other suppliers, maybe have a little bit more margin in their production slots, be able to leverage, some folks outside our routine process or our alliance contracts, find a vendor that's going to actually meet our lead times and be able to keep our project on pace. So that's a great early win from the engineer cert and great work by the engineering teams to be able to find those alternate suppliers and make sure that didn't disrupt our projects.
Can you say that one more time? So we were on the close side, meaning not caught behind the massive extension in timelines.
We would, if we went with our alliance contractor, alliance supplier, we would have been stuck with a 92-week lead time if we chose to stay with them. Well, what this engineer cert allowed us to do is go out and quickly get bids from a couple other suppliers, both for their lead times and their pricing, and make sure that we could find another alternate that was going to be able to meet our needs. So finding out this late in the process, if we would have had to go out, let's say for a traditional sealed bid, it would have added close to 3 months worth of timeline before we could even award, much less, the savings that we have from the suppliers, manufacturing lead times. So in this case, we really looked at that alliance contract compared to what we paid. Costs were about neutral, but yet we were able to achieve through another supplier, a lead time that was much less than even the 30 days.
Thanks.
And then
Hey, Siri, just quickly on this one. This is a great conversation, great discussion about the benefit of having that flexibility. Times when everyone across the country and the globe, for that matter, is requesting the same type of material. So this is a win for us, but it's still something that concerns me because we rely on other utilities transmission projects too. So while we may have secured a win here for us, it still worries me that someone else is going to have to wait 92 weeks. And going back to generation and future planning and strategy, as we're looking for generation interconnection agreements, and you're looking at the RTOs approving generation interconnection, that's where this starts to worry me. Because you will have SPP last year issued a $7+ billion transmission portfolio. We believe this year is going to be even bigger than that. There's a big difference between announcing and planning a project and actually executing it. So I just want to put a little bit of a sobering note here that let's celebrate this one, but keep an eye out on our brothers and sisters and other utilities, on the challenges they may face that may affect us too. On that happy note, keep going.
It seems to be the theme, continuous one. We just don't know when supply chain might become, you know, those dynamic market conditions, when they might rise up and impact us. So a lot of things we're doing to try to prevent that. We're trying to order as early as we can. We're trying to secure as many alliance contracts as we can to make sure we have a queue position. The TASCA, which I'll be talking about here shortly, is trying to mimic that same philosophy and that same approach on the construction labor side. But definitely a key risk that's identified in a lot of our risk registers that we have on our projects. As it relates to the TASCA Transmission and Substation Contract Alliance, we do have that out on the street. It actually went out on July 8th. 15 contractors, 13 of them indicated that they would be bidding. So two kind of said, no, this might be too big for us, or we might not be a good fit. We do have bids due back August 29th. So our teams will be very busy in the month of September reviewing proposals and kind of getting us geared up for the next wave of work that's going to be coming on the heels of our Casta Sarpy transmission line. So a lot of great work by a lot of different teams to be able to make that TASCA, that the construction lines, come to life. So great work to all those folks. It really touched on almost every business unit within OPPD to make sure that we had the right aspects of stakeholder engagement and right of way and other things that really impact a contractor's ability to execute work. Any questions on that one? Okay, and then I'm gonna, if we jump to the last one, thank you, Aaron. I just touch on a few things, kind of in the spirit of major projects and OPPD in general, really looking at process improvement and continuous improvement of all kinds across the type of work that we do. So just wanted to touch on two things real quick, recognizing that material challenges, supply chain challenges could, cause some disruptions in the way we cost forecast work. We are working a lot more with our supply chain team right now on estimating and making sure that we take into account inflationary factors and potential tariff impacts and those sorts of things. So some great collaboration happening across business units there. From a prioritization standpoint, as OPPD has kind of de-scoped a few projects in our portfolio for the year or for the next coming years. That's freed up a few internal resources for us to leverage within major projects. It's essentially allowing us to save a little bit of the staff augmentation approach that we have been considering by using some internal resources that are now available until IOC or other things gain a little bit more traction in future years. So a great way to repurpose the resources that we already have internal to the organization. Strategic partnership, continue to work with Burns and Mack and refining kind of what we need out of them and some of the tools and processes that they've helped us create, making sure that, it's kind of meeting the flexibility and needs of our organization. So we're, going through a lot of revisions at the moment around the way that we structure dashboards to be able to view and consume our schedules and costs on these projects. Really streamlining additional aspects of meeting attendance and just some of the hygiene to really save the money where we can. The last thing I'll mention is organizational changes. So effective last month, the major projects group and the project management office all combined. So now we have all project management activities for utility ops taking place underneath one. So what that's allowing us to do is really kind of leverage some key resources internal and have them able to span across portfolios, whether they're major projects or traditional work. But we're learning some great things across the different unique ways in which we have been doing work to strengthen the whole. So with that, if there's no questions, I'll be passing it off to Scott. All right, thank you.
Okay, good afternoon again. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the great work and collaboration that's been happening at North Omaha Station in support of the conversion efforts. So these have been both internal and external to OPPD. And we're gonna talk from an aggregate perspective, so that's what the schedule graphic is trying to show here. And then we'll also talk some of the plans in the future. As you may know, new burners are required for North Omaha Station Unit 5 to optimize its capability on natural gas to provide approximately 200 megawatts of accredited summer capacity once we convert. All of the burners have been received and are at the site and staged for the eventual conversion outage. The installation labor RFP was issued in July, and a sealed bid contract will come to the board this October for your review and potential award there. The air construction permit to allow that actual gas conversion, physical construction, just like the new gas projects, the Cass and Turtle Creek expansions. We also need a gas permit, to do those physical construction activities. That was submitted July 29th of this year. And we are targeting issuance in September of 2026 for that. The scope of that permit modification covers the Unit 5 burner replacement work. Some of the regulatory work that we're undertaking, new intake traveling screens are required to be installed per our operating permit for compliance with the Clean Water Act. The installation is going well. We're done with 5 of the 11 screens. So they are in various stages of installation, but that's going well there. The Turtle Creek and Stammer Lake GIA, or Generator Interconnection Agreement, is expected to be completed this quarter. Once fully approved, assuming no transmission build-out requirements, OPPD will submit the Unit 1, 2, and 3 retirement application to SPP with an expected review duration of about 1 year. So that kind of brings us to the end of this year and into 2026. But once the retirement of Units 1, 2, and 3 is studied and subsequently approved by SPP, again, planned and tentatively by September of 2026, assuming no transmission build-out associated with that approval, Unit 2's main output transformer will be removed and allowed to have a power backfeed transformer installed to power the electric ops boiler. We coordinate with our delivery friends in utility ops to find a transformer within the district to reuse it, which lowered our costs as well as improved our schedule based upon the long lead there. Again, that will physically prevent Unit 2 from operating, and we need the electric ops boiler to create heat, prevent freezing at the station once Units 4 and 5 aren't on coal and run year round. The aux boiler mechanical side and piping have already been installed, but these electrical connections will be done in fall of 2026. The conversion outage schedule will be finalized and issued approximately 2 months in advance of when we plan to conduct that per our normal process. There's still a lot of identified projects that we need to refine, as well as some of the gas conversion details before we can issue that schedule. So with all that, again, looking ahead, we do expect coal operations to cease in Q4 of 2026. Again, the final date to be refined. We'll start our conversion outage, and then we will complete the work through the winter and allow Units 4 and 5 to use natural gas as a fuel for the summer 2027 season and be at greater capacity there. So that's a whirlwind of a lot of work by a lot of people to get to an eventual goal. So any questions?
Thanks for sharing really steps. I like this slide.
No question, but again, appreciate the update, both on work that's been completed and the projection looking forward. Very important to me, so thanks very much. Appreciate it.
Just a quick note here, the Southwest Power Pool approval, as you all remember, that was a big deal, and that's when the board voted to extend the station's operations. We have reasonable proof that we should be okay, but I never want to say yes, we're ready. SPP changes things. We're relying on MISO. We're relying on Associated Energy to run studies, and lately we've been receiving a little concerning signals from SPP. So I just want to put a little emphasis on that point. We'll keep the board updated if anything changes there, but I want to make sure that we keep our eye on that piece, which is very, very important.
When you say should be okay, is the flip side of not being okay, meaning that there are network upgrades that. we're
Either
not
network
gonna see?
upgrades or restudies that will delay the permit. AGA. Or both. Right. Again, this is something that it's very fluid. It is frustrating for me, and the team, to say the least. But I wanted to bring that up as a word of caution. We will keep you updated. I'm having very active conversations with Brad and his team, and we will very likely we will be talking to SPP executives here pretty soon to get assurance that our plans are still on track.
Scott, I thought you said this quarter, yeah, is when we're expecting that. That's what we're hoping.
Yes, by end of Q3 is latest information that I know.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? All right, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And over to Joe to talk about next.
Good afternoon, everyone. Joe Lang, Director of Generation Strategy and Origination. Just a couple updates for you on some renewable and battery storage activities. Pierce County Energy Center is a 420 megawatt solar, 170 megawatt battery storage facility. The battery storage helps us optimize the full facility to be able to credit the full 420 megawatts. The location of the Pierce County Energy Center is in Pierce County, but maybe more specifically, it's northwest of Norfolk, Nebraska is the area that it's in. It's a partnership between OPPD, Google, and then NextEra is the developer. So it's a really good synergy of the various parties. And from a construction perspective, we're currently anticipating it to be COD in 2027, and it's on schedule. Things are going well in the field. They're currently driving piles. They are done or working on well into lots of the roads and access to the facility. So it's there's a lot going on out in the field, and it's a very sizable facility. I'm thrilled to announce that the generation interconnection agreement was executed last month. As we've known with lots of our resources, the generator interconnection process through SPP and getting an executed GIA is a really big deal. And even, I won't say more importantly, but certainly to add on, the interconnection request is it's very marginally limited from an interconnection point. It's just several megawatts on a 420 megawatt facility. So you could execute a GIA and be limited on your injection, where here materially there's no impact from an injection standpoint. It wasn't looking like that the entire process through. At one point, it was limited to 0 megawatts.
Even as recent as 3 months ago. Again, to the previous point I made earlier, how things change.
Went from 0 to basically 420.
Yes.
Correct.
It's, yeah.
What year of the queue was this submitted?
I'm trying to remember. I think it was the 2019.
So the same queue that we submitted Turtle Creek and Standing Bear.
The Turtle Creek Standing Bear is in 2020, and come to think of it, I believe this was in the 2020 queue as well, because they're coming through about the same time.
If you brought it on me, I think your memory is correct. We submitted in 2019, but it was for the 2020.
Okay, yeah, because of the deadline and then
Right,
it starts to
yeah.
get studied. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Yep. So to maybe to be clear there, this project was in the queue prior to our Turtle Creek Standing Bear Lake Station.
Okay, I just want to make sure no one jumped a line.
Sorry, can I just follow that real quick? And I know it's not about this project specifically, but are we seeing, as we've talked about in the past, is SPP having faster resubmittal to final approval than they would have from 2020 to mid 2025? The policy updates there anticipated that they would be able to move things forward. So are things in 21, 2, 3 now moving quicker than 5 years?
Well, I'll just give an answer for our many interconnections? No. Thank you for the question.
Eventually, yes, but they first have to go through all of these backlog before they can actually start catching up.
I think just to remind that there's a lot of variability in the planning process because you have all these speculative generators that are coming in and out and causing things that just the whole construct makes it difficult for this to be fast. Not saying that they shouldn't have some improvements, but it's a difficult market.
So for Pierce, it's a huge win. It's a huge win we're now through the process. We have an executed GIA and virtually no limit in that regard, materially speaking. And so it's huge. So we've got the GIA executed. NextEra has it specifically, to be clear. And then a next step for us is firm network transmission service. So we will submit for transmission service, and in essence, transmission service. So an interconnection allows you to take energy from the facility and inject it into the grid. And then the next step being transmission service allows you to take that energy from the resource and deliver it to our load. So that will be the next step from a SPP transmission standpoint.
No, you were correct, 2019 Q for Pierce.
Stops in 2020, so it's.
We're in multiple queues, but our first is 2020.
I believe that's it on Pierce, but it's if we spoke a couple months ago on this, a lot has transpired in the past couple of months from the way of this project becoming, its viability just leaped in that time frame.
And no zoning, permitting, there are no issues there.
All done.
All done. Okay. And remind us, if you will, 420, what's the largest solar installation in the state today?
Largest complete project is OPPD's Platteview project.
And that's 81.
There's another project that's underway. Unclear on its full viability. The Panama project that's contracted in the state. It's 300 somewhere.
And I mean, even further, even SPP 420 would be the largest project in SPP currently operational or close.
Close, if not.
Yeah.
How large is that?
Sorry.
How large is the site?
It's about, I don't remember how many acres specifically, but it's almost 4 square miles. It's one landowner.
Wow.
Which is very helpful.
Joe, is storage wise, is this far and away the largest amount of storage too?
In the state, yes, and I'm not Crystal on largest storage in SPP, but it would be one of the largest.
And it is you don't have to get too much into it, but what's the correlation between how much storage a place can have versus what solar they're generating?
Basically what you're trying to do is optimize, because a solar or wind facility doesn't accredit to its nameplate capacity. You're trying to look at when you pair solar with that wind or when you pair storage with a solar or wind facility, you're looking to, if your nameplate's this much and your accreditation is, a portion of that, you're trying to use storage to be able to optimize that full accredited capacity of the interconnect is what your objective is.
In most cases, you are limited to that injection point and the GIA. So in this case, if the GIA is for 420 megawatts, the idea is that with the combination of storage and solar, you wouldn't exceed that.
Are you saying 690? Or are you saying,
No,
right, that's,
420.
yeah, okay. Right.
So it's probably what,
Because they limited.
40% solar accreditation, isn't that the number we?
That's a good characterization. Maybe just a reminder, the early concentration is really helpful. And then the more the resource saturates, the less helpful it becomes outside of storage. So the early stuff will just be really high and then it'll kind of end down.
And it's seasonal, so winter versus summer is different as well.
The winter is 0 accreditation for solar. We're talking about summer.
And winter has come up here very recently as they look at solar's ability to serve during system constraints.
So sometimes these things are the same for utilities and sometimes they're not. If you had another utility, say in the state, with a different load profile, the accreditation would be different. So it's not the same for everybody.
Summer and winter or summer only?
Yes, summer and winter. Yeah.
And is storage accredited in winter?
I believe it is. It really has to do with the performance of the asset relative to can the utility get it to consistently discharge over the peak period? And that would be a effective load carrying capability. Yeah, you bet.
Yeah, there's a lot of complexity there.
Yeah, sorry, before moving on this one, are there any risks to the project as a result of evolving tax credit availability?
Tax credits for this project are secured, so no.
Guidance recently came out last week. The guidance was from the Treasury Department, and it was, I think that the consensus in the industry would be fair to state it was more favorable than what it could have been as far as how enforcement will be done for did you qualify to keep the ITC, PTC, and so we're still kind of thinking through some of that on a project by project basis. A lot of people waiting for that information.
Yeah. Slide, please. All right, K Junction Solar. So lots continues going on with K Junction Solar. Maybe just a quick reminder, K Junction Solar is a 310 or has the potential to be a 310 megawatt solar facility south of York, Nebraska. We have an interconnection agreement for the K Junction Solar Facility. Primarily the current step that we're working on is really the interaction with the county planning and zoning and the county board trying to get solar regulations that are reasonable from a setback perspective. Just to hit maybe a little history and kind of where we're currently at. In July of last year, the county board moved the regulations to the Planning and Zoning Commission to look at, and the Planning and Zoning Commission got a consultant and they're working on a comp plan, and a part of the comp plan, they were including the solar regs into that. And the consultant helped give them some advice on what the consultant felt were reasonable setbacks for regulations. The Planning and Zoning Commission didn't take that input to the solar reg setbacks, and they moved it up to the county board. The county board denied those solar regulations, the setbacks specifically, and they're currently discussing those. So the most recent meeting with the York County Board was this morning. Carol Wazak on our team was out there and provided comments, in essence, educating further and information on inverters, on battery storage, because there's lots of questions around technologies and how they work. So she was providing some comment and input on. So that's, that's we try hard to work with the county to make sure people understand these facilities and what they do and what they don't do. It's a lot of education and information, what we push hard on to get people to feel.
As I've said before, and I've said this to the board, and I say this to every person that I talk to, the biggest advantage of this project is that we were just talking about GAs and queues. This one had a queue position even earlier than the ones that we were talking about. We have a generation interconnection ready to go. And so the conversation I have with many people who are pro-solar, anti-solar, pro-coal, whatever it is, it doesn't matter from my perspective given the growth that we're experiencing in the state of Nebraska, given the opportunity we have in front of us, both in rural and urban areas, our ability to bring generation online as early, as fast as we possibly can is incredibly important. K-Junction is that project. And I appreciate all the animosity and the votes, et cetera. And I'm not discounting any of that. But from my perspective, we have to bring in electrons, new electrons to the grid fast. This is as good as it gets. Now, if I had a magic wand and we could switch the project to a different area that had a lower productivity, that had the substation, that had the transmission, and we could get that generation interconnection approved a few years ago, I would do it, right? But this is one where we find ourselves as a state in a race to build generation, to site generation, to site transmission. And this project in here is ours to lose. And I mean ours as a state. Still, lots of conversations that will happen with the county commissioners. But again, I will take this opportunity to share the importance of a project like this for the state's economy, not just even our service territory, but for the state's economy, to bring in those electrons that are sorely needed.
At a time when the economy in the state is shrinking.
Exactly.
It's pretty evident to me that we've been investing a lot of time and energy in this, right? Like somebody was there this morning. I'm sure we're making phone call after phone call, doing everything we can. Could you help me understand how some of the other key players from an economic development standpoint, from a regulatory standpoint, just, there are other stakeholders in the state who stand to benefit here. Curious about the level at which they're engaging in trying to have reasonable setback regulations.
I think I'm going to draw this back to sense of urgency. And I think that sense of urgency is escalating very quickly with those other parties. But it hasn't been as high as the sense of urgency that we've identified. Right? So there's always some time and education, and with our own customers, for example, customers who we could energize faster if we had these facilities. It's taken a while for them to realize, oh, there's a clear correlation. A lot of these customers, even though they're in our service territory, they do business with farmers and ethanol manufacturers who are in that county. So now the conversations are, how do we close this loop, this information loop, this economic loop? Say, what do you do in your county is benefiting the state, and in this case, customers that will energize in a service territory, and to the extent that they energize faster, they will benefit your county economy because they are buying products from not just your county, but from other parts of the state. Those conversations are starting to gain more traction, and I think part of it is because customers are finally realizing that sense of urgency, that it's happening across the nation. My personal opinion, it's not happening fast enough. The other piece, and I own this, and I think OPPD as a whole, we have to do a better job engaging with the community, with those communities earlier. Right? The project we have in front of us, it is what it is. It's there, and we're trying to capitalize on that and trying not to let that opportunity go for the state. But going forward, there are different ways in which we're already planning to engage. Cliff just mentioned the part of the One Red grant and hiring agronomists to help bridge the gap between farmers' concerns and utilities concerns. Where can we build? How can we build? How can we build a collaborative framework that will be sustainable going forward, so that we don't have to debate and discuss project by project, but rather have a framework that we all can work with. But that's a longer term solution. For this one in particular, I am asking as many people as I can, talk to people in your county. It benefits the state. It benefits them as it benefits us.
For to say we reserve the right to get smarter every day. And that's time and effort option. And this, if this should be a closed session discussion, then just tell me that. At what point do we make a different decision with regard to Kate? Like, are we getting close to that edge? Are we still turning over rocks, trying to figure out solutions? Or are we coming to a point where we just need to get smarter and do something different?
I think both. But to your point, and without revealing anything sensitive here, we have mitigated some of the financial risks to some extent. We have time that we can wait. We can continue to work on this project. It's not necessarily costing us anymore. At some point, that decision will come, and then we may have to make a different decision. But for now, the trade-off is worth it. Right? Go in and continue to work with the community. There's still a chance. Let's figure out if we can still make it work. And at the same time, as I mentioned earlier, we're not just sitting and waiting for this project to happen and that's it. Right? We're working on many other projects. We just recently, about a couple of months ago, we got Dutch County Commissioners approved favorable land planning and zoning regulations. We're pursuing other projects in other parts of the service territory. So we're not resting there, but the emphasis is still here because of the timeliness piece. That's why I'm not gonna say who, but someone in the community told me, it's like, seems like you're very stubborn with this project. And I said, yes, because it has that interconnection and that it has that timeliness to serve that is so important for the state. Otherwise, we wouldn't be, we probably would have made other decisions. Does that help?
Yeah. I mean, the value of the GIA is only as valuable as what we can build and actually connect to the grid, right? So if that's becoming more clear every day, that that's not going to go, I'd rather time and effort and money be spent to solve the same problem, right? So, yeah, anyway, yeah, just wanted to
Thank you.
red team it a little bit.
Good red team. And one piece to clarify too, the most recent relevant vote was the county board denied
Right,
the
yeah,
unreasonable
so
rate restricted.
there's a glimmer.
Yeah. So we remain committed to K-Junction and working with the county board and trying to do our best to find some middle ground that works for the county and certainly works for the project as well.
Well, I would just add a comment with to Javier's comments and yours, just to assure the board that members of various teams have been engaging to the point made here for months, a couple of years now. And I just want to reassure that team has been making every contact they know to make, understanding all the relationships, and first and foremost, educating and understanding the concerns of the community, both the proponents and the opponents of the project, and staying very, very connected. As you heard Joe talk about, and Carol out there, members of Brooks' team are out there practically, we joke with them, they're practically York County residents. So I want to assure that we continue to remain open for other opportunities to educate and influence to a positive outcome on this project, but we're deeply, deeply engaged.
That's it. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Joe.
Joe.
Okay, we'll take comments from the public on items of district business. I don't think I saw anybody in the room. Is there any members of the public in the room? Nope. Okay, so for WebEx attendees, if you wish to make a comment, please send the meeting host a message in the chat feature or utilize the hand raise feature. Detailed instructions can be found on the OPPD website at the link shown on the screen. When I call on a member of the public to speak, please affirm that we can hear you before commencing your comments. Please state your name, address, and the name of any organization or person you represent. Each individual will be allotted 3 minutes per matter pending. To assist you, we'll use the timer on the screen and signal you when 30 seconds remain, as well as when time is up. If you have written materials, please email them to corporatesecretary@oppd.com and they'll be received on our behalf. For all attendees, please direct your comments to me. I'll either respond to you directly or refer response to another board member or officer of the district. The board values and welcomes civil, respectful, clear, and concise communication from the public. During public comments, speakers should refrain from repetitious, profane, or irrelevant comments. Speakers shall refrain from polling the board as such vote is not on the agenda and is prohibited by law. Is there anybody online that'd like to make a comment?
David Corbin?
Can you hear us?
You hear me?
We can. Go ahead, please.
Okay, thank you. David Corbin, 1002 North 49th Street, representing the Nebraska Sierra Club. First of all, very excited to hear about the 420 megawatt solar with battery backup that I didn't know about, and it's very good. I was just wondering about, and both for the other one, if agrivoltaics or pollinators would help to sell the project, or if that's already happened. The main thing, I mean, I didn't know about that until listening to this meeting, but you may know, and it sounded like I heard some apprehension among the people at the meeting, that there are various groups in town, including the Sierra Club and others, who are worried about the EPA's rulings and are worried that the North Omaha station will be required to keep running. So my request is to reach out to the community, tell them what you're doing, tell them what's up to date, and so that some of that apprehension, I hope, will not be needed, but it is of concern. You may have seen also the nonpareil article about the Walter Scott coal station right across the river and some of the problems with that. A couple of Douglas County commissioners told me about an OPPD update that was given to them. And then one of the commissioners asked, how much renewable energy does OPPD produce? And I was told that whoever was at the meeting said they didn't know. I mean, that's right online. That should be something that everybody knows. And I would recommend posting that in more prominent places and include how many homes and businesses have EV and how many EVs there are in the district. Another county commissioner at another meeting said that there was going to be solar at the landfill. It was my understanding that the NET grant that you got decided not to put solar at the landfill. And if that's true, you probably need to communicate that with the county commission. Interested in knowing what will happen to the nuclear plant property when it's decommissioned. And one quick thing, as my yard is being torn up for fiber optics, just wondering if there's a possibility that there could be cooperation because in my neighborhood, all the electric lines are not underground, they're on poles. And I'm wondering if when there's projects like that, if there's a possibility to say, can we put the electricity underground and work with others? Thank you.
Thank you. I think we captured all of those. If somebody could reach back out on a couple of the answers.
Do you want me to answer now?
I'd leave it up to you if you. Okay. All right. We'll have somebody follow up with you on the questions that we captured from you. Thank you. Sarah, is there anybody else? With no other comments, we are going to move back into closed session because we didn't finish this morning. So, all right, we'll reconvene in closed session this afternoon to discuss three topics: corporate officer performance reviews and compensation adjustments, CEO performance review and compensation adjustment, and economic development impact. Director Spurgeon, do we have a motion to go into closed session?
We do. I move that the board go into closed session at this time at 2:31 p.m. to discuss three topics. One, corporate officer performance reviews and compensation adjustments. 2, CEO performance review and compensation adjustment, and 3, economic development impact. With respect to the corporate officer performance reviews and compensation adjustments, a closed session is necessary because the discussion will involve competitive and confidential compensation and retention information, as well as performance evaluation information. A closed session discussion is necessary to prevent needless injury to the reputations of the corporate officers, and none has requested a public meeting. With respect to the CEO performance review and compensation adjustment for Javier Fernandez, a closed session is necessary because the discussion will involve competitive and confidential compensation and retention information, as well as performance evaluation information. A closed session is necessary to prevent needless injury to the reputation of Mr. Fernandez, and he has not requested a public meeting. With respect to economic development impact, a closed session is necessary because discussion will involve competitively sensitive customer information.
All right, thank you. This motion requires a second to move on. All right, Ms. Lane?
Mulder? Yes. Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Ford?
Yes.
Howard? Yes. Hudson?
Yes.
Moody?
Yes.
Virgin? Yes. Williams?
Yes.
All right, the motion to go into closed session is passed. Again, this closed session will be limited to 3 topics: corporate officer performance reviews and compensation adjustments, CEO performance review and compensation adjustment, and economic development impact. No votes or other board action will be taken. Okay, thanks. All right, thank you. A motion and second is required to reconvene in open session. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
All right, Ms. Lane?
Wagner? Yes. Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Ford?
Yes.
Howard? Hudson?
Yes.
Moody? Virgin?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
All right, thank you. The motion to come out of closed session at 4:43 PM is carried. This closed session was limited discussion regarding 3 topics: corporate officer performance reviews and compensation adjustments, CEO performance review and compensation adjustment, and economic development impact. No votes or other board action were taken. And with that, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.